Truth.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Candid Truth, where the truth is not an option, but it is a standard. I hope you guys are ready for what is to come. There's a lot, and it's okay. A lot of what you will hear are things that you guys don't even know about. It's many new holidays that are hidden in the occult or otherwise. So thank you all for being here. We're excited to dive in and just buckle up because here we go. All right, let's go. So we're going to go through a little bit of recapping. There's a holiday specifically in April that I didn't get to cover. In fact, I missed it because it was given a different name in the occult. So let's go back just a minute. All right. So this, for anyone's reference, is what we're covering eventually. This is part 2. Let me go back and talk to you guys here. It's part 2 of 3. Number 3 will be coming soon. I do it as soon as I can, but life is crazy. So let's dive into this. You can go ahead and take a screenshot of the timeline just to have it in mind. I'll try to do my best, but let's do that overview. Oops. All right, so we have to rewind a bit. So this is what we're covering, all of it in total. When we get to part 3, we'll get to the very end. Right now we're covering April, a little bit of April again to overview, and then we're going back all the way to August. Okay? All right, so to review, we missed Shrovetide. This might be a completely new holiday to you guys. I certainly had never heard about it before. And it is, let's see here. It is actually on, wow, it's 3 days before Ash Wednesday. That's amazing. Okay, so that's where I'm getting it. It's from the legend in the corner in the right. So let's read about this. They have Shrovetide Saturday, which starts with processions. And it has some elements that, I want to talk to you guys about because you're going to recognize it right away once we start to address it. So in Italy, France, Germany, they have carnival season, which has parades, masquerades, and elaborate costumes. Participants wear vibrant attire and masks, engaging in a spirit of revelry and social role reversal before Lent's period of fasting. This is directly taken from Saturnalia. If you ever heard that, or if that rings a bell, I did address that last time. So they also have folk traditions. This is in Slovenia, where they actually do this for Shrovetide. I'm not going to try to say that name, but it involves unmarried men dressing in colorful costumes and traditional masks, traveling door to door to collect small gifts. These folk processions often featuring symbolic characters like a bride and groom. Remember that because you're going to need it next time we speak. They are meant to bring good luck and welcome the upcoming spring. Number 3, community feasts and pancakes. Now this whole time period that we're going to be speaking about right now has a lot to do with pancakes. So unfortunately, they are not pure, but hey, I love a good pancake. So it's not bad. You don't just throw out the baby with the bathwater. In this community feast and pancake time, again, that's number 3 we're on. It says in the United Kingdom, community gatherings featured foods like pancakes and pastries, using up ingredients like eggs, butter, and milk that are typically abstained from during Lent. So if you guys, I don't know your background or anything, but you have to give up so many things during Lent that this was normal. This was tradition. you had to go ahead and abstain from everything, give all those things up, make your pancakes out of them to get them out of the house before Lent. So number 4, symbolic farewell to winter. In Slovenia, they have current figures, which is dressing in hides and adorned with horns. So this to me rang a bell, mainly because you know how they have furries today? People dressing up in costumes that are furry like animals. This seemed similar. They parade through neighborhoods to symbolically chase away winter spirits and invite the fertility of spring. Okay. So there's Shrovetide Saturday. That is just what we've covered. Now go with me to the next day, Shrovetide Sunday. It's also called, oh my goodness, Quinga. All right, I'm not going to try that. Anyway, a time for special church services and family gatherings in anticipation of Lent. This is blessings and spiritual preparation. Many attend services focused on forgiveness, spiritual renewal, and preparation for the upcoming fasting season. So they would feast and have fellowship with their families, having a big meal, rich dishes to use up everything in the house so that they would be able to fast better during Lent. Then you have Collap Monday, a day before Shrove Tuesday. So if you get the gist, there is Shrove Saturday, Shrove Sunday, Collap Monday, and Shrove Tuesday. So, let's follow through with what Collap Monday is. In addition to fasting, there is particular note in the region of the UK to have collap feasts. Traditional dishes featuring collaps, which are slices of meat, especially bacon, and the meal is thought to use up fatty ingredients that would be abstained from during Lent. This would also be butter. So it also is very variable during different periods around the world when it's kept in different regions, basically. In some areas on this day, they also feature smaller folk processions or family gatherings in preparation for the main Shrove Tuesday event. Okay. So Shrove Tuesday is actually the main pancake day. I don't know, it's just crazy to hear that pancakes are a part of this. So the final and most widely celebrated day of Shrovetide is Shrove Tuesday, Pancake Day. They had pancake races and feasts, such as in the United Kingdom and other countries. Pancake races were held in many towns, with participants flipping pancakes in frying pans while racing. Pancakes are traditionally eaten as a way to use up rich ingredients before fasting. Okay, so I have a note there. This is actually a practice of the goddess Hestia or Vesta. If you haven't heard of them already, please go ahead and check out several of my other presentations. She is a major goddess who has to do with baking cakes. Not necessarily just a cake, but that's part of worshiping her, just like the Queen of Heaven in the Bible. And so here the pancakes are tied to her. Okay. So there's carnival parades and final festivities, which is where carnival is celebrated. To me, this is kind of some of the ancient festivals they had carnival undertones, but this one seems to highlight it pretty well. And on Shrove Tuesday, it marks the last day of grand parades and festivities. Italy's Venice Carnival, Brazil's Rio Carnival, and Germany's Carnival, reached their peak with vibrant displays of costumes and music. Saturn. This relates to Saturn and Burning Man, wicker, or straw man effigy burning. Okay. So that should sound like Mardi Gras to you guys. It's kind of what it is. So Some regions hold final processions or symbolic farewell rituals to mark the end of the festivities, signifying the transition to Lent, which is actually called the Celtic Saint Brigid Day. Again, if you haven't seen the first holiday presentation, then you don't know who Saint Brigid is yet. Go back and watch it, please, and you'll then know what I'm talking about. So number 4, community gatherings and final feasts. Friends and family come together one last time before Lent to enjoy festive dishes, often including rich or indulgent foods as part of the tradition. Okay, so this is what it would pretty much look like. You have the Burning Man effigy, you have the statue of Vesta, you have the race running from one direction, you've everybody eating pancakes. That's what it would look like. This is a picture depicting it more of the Roman or Greek persuasion from ancient times. Okay, let's go to a full screen here. So another note about Shrovetide Tuesday is it, believe it or not, had football attached to it. The Royal Shrovetide football games were played annually on Shrove Tuesday and Ash Wednesday in the town of Ashburn, Derbyshire, England. Is another traditional practice associated with the broader Shrovetide festivities. Although it's not directly tied to the Feast of St. George, the game shares roots with medieval customs that incorporated community gatherings and symbolic battles or competitions as part of pre-Lenten activities. So, this is when parts of the Royal Shrovetide football had in it community symbolic battles, if you will. And the game will pit 2 teams against each other. One would be called the Uppards and the other Downards, based on where players lived in relation to the town's river. That's just weird. But then they're pitted against each other in a symbolic battle that can involve hundreds of players over a large field, which is supposed to symbolize the whole town. The game symbolizes rivalry and community cohesion, echoing the competitive spirit seen in ancient seasonal games and rituals that took place during Shrovetide and other festivals. The game shares roots with medieval customs that incorporated community gatherings and symbolic battles or competitions as part of pre-Lenten activities. Okay, the Royal Shrovetide football game and modern Super Bowl, here's the connection to today. They share some fascinating parallels. So they ritualize competition and social celebration, though they originate from vastly different contexts and historical timelines. Here are the connections. So both the Shrovetide game and the Super Bowl hold deep significance for their representative communities. In Ashburn, the Shrovetide football game is an annual event that brings a whole town together, with locals divided into 2 teams, Uppards and Downards, based on geography. Similarly, the Super Bowl gathers American communities and fans nationwide, with strong regional support for the competing teams. The Royal Shrovetide football game is more than just a game. It's a physical and symbolic struggle involving the entire town, played over 2 days, with loosely defined boundaries and rules where players aim to reach their team's goal. This mirrors the spirit of the Super Bowl, where 2 teams engage in a highly structured but intense competition that channels collective energy and excitement, a modern echo of symbolic battles seen in ancient and medieval festivals. Okay. The Shrovetide game is surrounded by local festivities, often likened to a holiday for Ashburn. Similarly, the Super Bowl has evolved beyond a sporting event to include nationwide festivities with watch parties, commercials, and halftime performances, making it a cultural spectacle. So, let's take a look deeper. Shrovetide football represents a form of folk football with medieval or even pagan roots connected to community bonding and seasonal celebrations. The Super Bowl, while newer and professionally organized, carries forward this tradition of ritualized sports, tapping into the same human drive for symbolic competition, unity, and celebration. Though they differ in origin and scope, both the Royal Shrovetide football game and the Super Bowl serve as modern and historical expressions of community identity, competitive spirit, and collective celebration, marking key moments on the calendar that bring people together in powerful, symbolic ways. Okay, so that was our recap, just to include Mardi Gras and all the Shrovetide and pancakes and the Super Bowl, because these are key elements that we see in our world today. So I hope that wasn't too much to recap with, but that helps us address that and move forward. So let's jump in there. Okay, so this would be a depiction of course, the Super Bowl, the Shrovetide football games. Again, it was always kind of carried out with a statue that's supposed to be Vesta or Hestia, because she was likened to Zeus, who is worshipped, and Apollo for the Olympics. And this actually I shouldn't say it came from the Olympics. It actually was a part of how the Olympics was structured and came about. All right, so on to April Fool's Day. I don't know if many of you like this day, but I think you'd be surprised as to why it exists. The origins of April Fool's Day are complex, blending mythological, religious, and cultural elements across centuries. One of the most accepted theories traces to the Roman festival Hilaria. Okay, so think laughter, Hilaria, celebrated around the vernal equinox to honor the goddess Cybele. Again, we've talked about this. You know, if I've covered something, I will always tell you what god or goddess it worships. So please go back and watch some of my earlier videos, such as the Rain Man and Androgyny. There you will learn a lot more about these gods that I'm already mentioning. During this time, participants would wear disguises, engage in playful mischief, and reverse social roles, symbolizing a temporary break into societal norms. Key themes that resonate with modern-day April Fool's customs. This was a key theme that resonated with modern April Fool's customs. In medieval Europe, April Fool's traditions may have also been influenced by the Feast of Fools, celebrated in France. This occasion involves fools or jesters, engaging in mock rituals and reverse roles within cathedrals. Isn't this interesting? We have mocking rituals and role reversals within cathedrals. All I can do is liken that to somewhat of the humiliation rituals that they go through in Hollywood to make it up the ranks. Crazy. Leading some to believe it eventually merged with a seasonal prank associated with April 1st. However, over time, it was often mistaken for a parody rather than a form of reverence, as it was originally intended. Can you believe it? Why would they originally make April Fool's Day and pranks and mock rituals and so on, with clowns everywhere pretty much, or jesters? How would they claim that that was reverence? How is that ever supposed to be a thing of reverence? I don't know. Okay, so those are my sources on that. Moving forward, a little more about April Fool's Day. Another notable influence came from the shift in New Year celebrations. France's 1564 Edict of Roussillon, I believe, set January 1st as the official start of the year. But those who continued celebrating the old New Year and didn't switch to the Gregorian calendar in late March became known as April Fools due to their persistence in the previous calendar traditions. This change spread throughout Europe, embedding pranking as a powerful way to highlight this calendar disagreement. These diverse origins illustrate April Fool's Day has evolved from a blend of ancient celebrations. When they mean Christian, by the way, they're meaning the Catholic Church. So it's Catholic liturgical practices and regional customs. This layered history becomes a fascinating lens into the interplay between mythology, cultural transitions, and communal celebrations that led to the holiday as we know it today. The connection between April Fool's Day and reverence. Oh, wow. Okay. They're going to try to explain why reverence is in here. And reverence, on the last paragraph here, stems from traditions like the medieval French Feast of Fools and the Roman Hilaria Feast, both of which included humor as a form of symbolic release rather than mere mockery. During the Feast of Fools, lower-ranking clergy and lay people took on roles usually held by the high clergy in a festive role reversal. The intention wasn't sacrilege, but to celebrate humility, aligning with the biblical view that God exalts the humble. So this is a really strange thing, okay? It's kind of like hazing. It's like you have to go through these things to be humbled, to earn your right to that position. It doesn't sound godly at all. It sounds more like a Jesuit thing. It's really strange. Anyway, continuing on, the last sentence down below says, this ritualized foolishness embodied a sense of reverence by acknowledging joy and gratitude through playful acts, illustrating a core spiritual concept. All right, let's see what this might look like. Similarly, Hilaria honored Cybele, a revered mother deity, through joyous, often humorous celebrations, emphasizing relief from life's hardships, a form of reverence through communal joy, they say. Both celebrations suggest that humor and humility, even if expressed through foolish pranks or lighthearted customs, held sacred undertones rather than pure ridicule. Okay, I gotta laugh at this. This is not true on any level. But anyway, the last sentence again. This underscores why historically, these rituals were seen as celebratory acts with deeper symbolic reverence. I don't know how they're bending that to become reverent or humbling. Anyway, continuing on, the occult meaning of this day. Oh, this is going to get good, okay? Listen up, you guys. So it's not just a origin coming from the king having jesters in the medieval ages to supposedly have reverence to, I guess, God, as the Catholics would think. It was stemming from other things too. Like I mentioned, it's Cybele, but this is going to get even deeper. Okay, let's take a look. For those in occult or esoteric communities, April Fool's Day can hold symbolic significance tied to archetypes and seasonal cycles rather than just humor. Okay, so it's like the lunar cycles and the sun cycles as well, which we're not supposed to keep. So it says, in pagan and occult traditions, the fool archetype often represents spiritual renewal. Okay, stepping into the unknown and challenging norms, concepts that align with the beginning of spring, a time associated with new life and transformation. Okay, that's a stretch, but it keeps going. It says trickster figures like Loki, Coyote, and Hermes embody these ideas, using mischief to disrupt the usual order and provoke reflection or change, which resonates with the spirit of April Fool's Day. especially Hermes. When I looked at it, that's what my note means. He was definitely linked with this heavily, more than other gods even, because he is the god of thieves and outlaws and even pranks. Interesting, huh? I never would have thought. Okay, so the day also relates to ideas in alchemy, where the fool, quote unquote, symbolizes the initiate, the initial unrefined stage of transformation. I'm sorry, it didn't say initiate. It said just initial unrefined stage of transformation, reminding practitioners to embrace uncertainty and cultivate growth. Some occultists and Freemasons see April 1st as a chance to confront life's absurdities, pushing boundaries to inspire self-awareness and encourage new perspectives. Huh. Wow. Interesting. Thus, for some, April Fool's Day represents a blend of humor and symbolic exploration of personal or spiritual growth. So that picture that you see is of Hermes. It says it right there. And he is known as, like I said, the god of thieves and outlaws. So he has all kinds of things there that he stole or he kind of rules over. You can look that up further. We don't have time for a lot of that right now. But let's go ahead and get on to our next thing here. This is Earth Day. This is where we left off in our covering all the holidays from last time. This is where we pick up from part 1. That's where we would go to, is Earth Day. So April 22nd is Earth Day. And, well, as you can see above, again, from the usually occult and satanic ritual abuse calendar that I include a lot, it would say that April 21st through the 26th is abduction, ceremonial preparation, and holding of sacrificial victims. So the 22nd would, of course, fall within that range. And this is why it exists. The modern celebration of Earth Day, while secular and environmentally focused, reflects a deep-rooted human tradition of reverence for nature, growth, and the cyclical renewal of life. These themes resonate with ancient pagan and mythological practices from various cultures, which honored the earth and its seasonal changes through gods, goddesses, and symbolic rituals. Here's a summary of the connections. So first, we have, as you might have thought, it is, of course, Ostara, or Easter, which is the spring equinox. And of course, its location or its proximity to Easter kind of tips you off. So, spring equinox, which is to Ostara or Easter, the goddess Ostara, by the way, is celebrated by Celtic and Germanic pagans. The spring equinox honors Oester or Ostara, which is actually Ishtar or Easter, a goddess associated with the dawn, fertility, and new life. Her festival symbolizes the earth's renewal, planting, and growth. Earth Day's timing around early spring echoes the celebration of life emerging from winter. That's what they think, anyway. So Earth Day, if you haven't heard, is truly another name for Ishtar or Mother Earth would be Gaia. Gaia is the ancient Greek goddess of the earth and is often associated with Earth Day. Okay, so, all right, it's linked with Ishtar and Gaia now. But who is Gaia? Gaia is the personification of the earth and the mother of many other gods. She is considered one of the earliest elemental deities, created at the beginning of time. Gaia symbolizes a nurturing, sustaining force of abundance and limitless giving. How is Gaia associated? Well, many people refer to her as Mother Earth, and Gaia is the goddess of the earth. The idea that the earth is alive may be as old as humankind, and the Greeks viewed the earth as a living organism. All right, so this came from a pagan origin, a pagan resource, and they say there are certain ways to connect with Gaia at this time of the year. On Earth Day, you can walk barefoot on the earth. Ground yourself to Mother Earth. Do a sun salute on your deck, so that's yoga. Breathe in the spring air, which, all right, we aren't trying to get close to Gaia or worship her, but we are fine with breathing in clean air. Practicing savasana, lying on the earth. From what I know, savasana is related to yoga. So not really a great thing either. So this is also linked with a multitude of mother goddesses, nurturing goddesses like Gaia, Terra Mater, and Tellus, which is the Roman name for Terra Mater, and Nerthus, which is Germanic. These deities were seen as the source of all life, and rituals were held in their honor to ensure the land's fertility. Earth Day's focus on protecting and nurturing the planet is a continuation of the respect shown to these earth deities. The Green Man. Oh my goodness. Okay. Have you guys heard of Green Man? You see him usually on garden gates or walls or just in gardens, really, because he represents the earth and greenery and lush, like Gaia does too. So the Green Man, let's continue reading. The Green Man, a figure seen in European folklore, represents the spirit of vegetation, life, and rebirth, often depicted with leaves and vines. You'll get to see a picture of him, by the way, very soon. We're going to go over these gods. The Green Man embodies humanity's connection to nature and the renewal of the earth, themes that align closely with Earth Day's purpose. So, number one, the mythological connections. Number one is Egyptian mythology. In Egypt, Geb was the god of the earth, associated with growth and vegetation. Additionally, the myth of Osiris and Isis, which centers on death and resurrection, which symbolizes the life cycles mirrored in nature. Earth Day's themes of regeneration and life cycles resonate with these ancient Egyptian beliefs. All right. Oh, here we go. Very good. So, you can see Green Man in the right-hand corner. There's two pictures of him. Of course, you see the one in stone, probably on a wall in a garden, of course. And then you see just an image of him drawn that way with leaves. Okay? And this is, down below, the Egyptian god is Geb, the one we just talked about. And the next one to it with the goat horns and the green body, which is also has the Egyptian, the Egyptian beard thing that he straps on is also Geb. So the two down below in this picture on this slide is Geb. And then the one in the middle, which is a mother with it looks like a woman with two kids, is Tellus from Rome. The one with the cornucopia in her hand is Terra Mater. Okay, so Earth Day. This is where we get a little deeper. As most of you might have understood, these things come from like Babylonian origins as well. And in Babylonian customs, this would come from the god Tiamat, representing primordial chaos and the elemental forces of creation. While Ea, or Enki, known by both names, was the god of wisdom and water, and was connected to fertility and the earth's life-giving aspects. These figures emphasize the balance between chaos and order, and humanity's role in sustaining creation, concepts that reflect Earth Day's call for environmental stewardship. Interesting. Okay, Chaldean beliefs, which are even more kind of deeper rooted mystery beliefs of the Babylonians, they had Ninurta, a god of agriculture, and Marduk. I hope that rings a bell. Marduk is Chemosh or Baal. Of course, he has other names, but he is supposed to have shaped the heavens and earth. They were both revered for their roles in creating and maintaining natural order and fertility. Earth Day's focus on nurturing the environment aligns with these deities' symbolic associations with cultivation and life cycles. Now we go on to Roman mythology. This would include Ceres. I hope I'm saying that right. When they celebrated her, the goddess of agriculture and grain, they would do so with a cerealia feast. So this would be where we get the word cereal, because she is the goddess of grain. Does that ring a bell to anyone? Is that interesting to anyone else? It's so weird. But this emphasizes planting and growth. Tellus, who is also Terra Mater, or Mother Earth, was honored in the Fordycidia to secure crop fertility, while Flora, goddess of the flowers and plants, was celebrated in the Floralia. Wow, I can't say that. Anyway, with festivals that celebrated nature's beauty. These Roman gods and their festivals resonate strongly with Earth Day's encouragement of planting, environmental beauty, and the respect for Earth. All right, it's a mouthful. So let's talk about who this is. We'll start on the right. Top right and top bottom is actually Ceres. Again, this is the goddess of grain, and this is where we get cereal from, and the festival Cerealia. Then we have Flor. She is next to Ceres. She's holding the lei of flowers, and next to her is Tiamat, the Babylonian god, who is a snake, half human person who is over order and chaos. I hope that rings a bell as well, because order and chaos is more a theme of the occult. You hear it from the Jesuits and from the Illuminati, and you would probably find that with Satanists as well. Aleister Crowley certainly talks about this. But she was featured as a dragon a lot of the time. That is why she has a tail. It's either a snake or a dragon. And down below her, we see this dragon, which is her, in a picture which opposite of her shows Flora. They're not fighting or anything. They just, for some reason, decided to depict Tiamat with Flora and how different they are. Then we have, what was the other god that we missed? The next god that we're missing is Enki. I had to go check. So this is Enki that we see on the left, the very left, down below, on the bottom, and the top. He is the god of fish and the water, and he's said to have made humankind, which is interesting. But you can see his Babylonian origins with a beard and the shells and his staff. So yeah, he's kind of crazy. So Earth Day, again, it has tree worship and groves associated with it. And this would be interesting to know why. Tree worship was integral in many ancient pagan cultures, especially among the Druids. So now we bring in the very occult origins here, who revered trees as sacred. Planting trees and nurturing forests, as emphasized on Earth Day, mirrors these ancient rites where trees were seen as symbols of life and were often planted in sacred groves. The burning or symbolic cleansing of winter is associated with it as well. Within ancient traditions in parts of Germany and Slavic regions, it involves the burning of winter, quote unquote, through effigies or figures such as the current in Slovenia and straw figures in Germanic cultures to chase away winter and welcome spring. So they just told us exactly why the Burning Man happens. That ties it to it. And a lot of these holidays, when they're next to each other, they do have a lot of connected symbols or meaning. So this is where that comes from. It's a much clearer answer of why. This notion of clearing away the old to make way for renewal aligns with Earth Day's call for environmental action and renewal. So if we think about the tree and the Druid religion here, we will see that, in Kabbalah, we have the Kabbalah tree of the steps in which you are to work your way up the orders and the gods to become God yourself. That's also in Freemasonry and the Jesuit world, if you get really deep into it. If you really look at a lot of different religions, they're doing the same thing. And so are the occultists. They're really doing that as well. So that tree is supposed to symbolize like all of that. It's really crazy. So let's go back to our notes and see what's next. Okay. So on Earth Day, they have certain things that the witches say to do, of course, to probably venerate or celebrate Gaia, the Earth Mother. So number 1, let's do ourselves a favor and try to read that a little better. It says, a 1-day zero waste challenge, and reflect on your experience in your grimoire. Okay, a grimoire is a spell book, that witches use. So you put this in your book and you do a zero waste challenge, which, by the way, zero waste is great. We all actually should be stewards of the earth better, but when they use this to worship gods and put that as the reason instead of taking care of the earth because God made it and we need to take care of it better, then we're worshiping other gods deceptively. But we all should care about the earth, so that's not a bad thing. But they want you to put this in your book of spells. It says, add a globe or global image to your altar to promote a think globally, act locally attitude. Okay. Number 3, dedicate the cleanup of an outdoor space to your preferred deity, ancestors, animal allies, or spirit of the land. Okay. That's getting a little creepy. There's spiritual guides and stuff. Number 4, celebrate or decorate a bin with paint and stencils and begin your sacred composting practice. Okay, don't get me wrong. This is weird. I love gardening, and composting, of course, as we know, is a good practice. It's not evil at all, but Wiccans and the occult world are quite good at repurposing crafts and activities for worshiping gods. By being resourceful and using the things that the earth has given you, you're kind of giving honor back to it. So that's not what we want to do. But of course, we would have no purpose to be angry at people who are composting. We would want to do the same. Just to clarify that for others. Okay, let's go back. Number 5. Access where our witchy supplies come from. Are they gathered to ensure sustainable harvests? It is time to consider alternatives. How can you get creative with recycled resources? So recycling again. By the way, did anyone think about this as the climate change push that is going to be pushed on us in the end days? Because that's a connection there. Number 6, consult your favorite divination method and ask for guidance about your personal mission and actionable inspiration for Earth stewardship. Record any inspiration and take action as soon as possible. Number 7, choose a plant ally to bring into your home as a reminder of Earth consciousness. Okay, so that's like an altar. Putting an item on your altar to remember to do things or to worship. That's like your item that worships Gaia on it. You have one for many other gods on your altar, but that's one for Gaia. Number 8, plan a private ritual or invite friends to commit to one action towards earth healing. Ooh, like I mentioned the climate change thing. It's a big push and it is connected with this. Doesn't it sound like the same thing? I think it does. Number 9, spend a few moments meditating on connection and the beautifully diverse web of life, of which you are an important part, moon baby. So now they're calling you, because Gaia is known basically to have given birth to the moon, and then the moon, it's complicated. I don't know the full story, but that's kind of what it is that you are the moon baby. So all humans are moon babies. 10, use art witchery to create something beautiful from recycled or naturally sourced materials to include on your altar or share with the community. Okay, so this is, again, interesting. Actually, I have to comment on this because art is used a lot by witches too. And again, art is not bad. God made art and imagery. He used it when he gave parables. And so art isn't bad, but it can be used and is used in a lot of ways to worship other gods, or be used. Even Aleister Crowley's book on magic also tells you to use art in lots of ways to invoke demons, to be consumed but worship certain gods and goddesses. So he knows what's up. They know what's up. So let's continue on. 11, pick out an existing reusable cup or purchase from a local artist and bless it for good health and earth wellness. Carry it with you to spread the love and strengthen your stewardship. Number 12, dye, decorate, embroider, and enchant reusable bags for abundance and planetary health. Make one for you and a friend. Again, we as Christians, or if not, everybody mostly would agree that we should be taking care of the planet. It's a good thing. Reusing things or getting rid of bad things are all good things too. Number 13, plant or pot, or plan, if the weather isn't ideal, a native planting as an offering to winged friends, pollinators, or the genius Loki. Okay, so they're telling you exactly what you're offering this to. Birds, pollinators, and the god Loki. So this was like I said, you can see it right there. This is by Molly Roberts. She is a witch that is teaching you how to do this on her website. Down below, I didn't really want us to see her altar, but I wanted a little image to show, all of the things that she has on her altar during this time. Those are all my sources. Let's continue. All right. The Feast of St. George. This is the next one. And this gets a little hairy. So just bear with me. The pagan and mythological connections of St. George's feast. So, the warrior imagery of St. George reflects Mars, the Roman god of war, as well as Perilia, which is April 21st. I can't read today. After a lot of working on the computer, your eyes get tired. But it says, Perilia, a festival for Pales or Palace that includes livestock blessings and spring rites. Additionally, the Ferae Latinae festival for Jupiter involved protective rituals for a prosperous season. Horus, Egyptian god of protection and battle, and Osiris, associated with seasonal renewal, offer symbolic parallels with themes of safeguarding and the earth's fertility. The god Marduk's victory over Tiamat, representing chaos, and Ninurta's guardianship over agriculture align with St. George's portrayal as a protector. Figures like the Green Man and Harillo, maybe, a Slavic god of spring and fertility, as well as fire purification rites seen in festivals like Perilia and Beltane, resemble the agricultural blessings and the renewal themes found in St. George's Day customs. All right, so let's talk about what these rituals and practices are. In association with these gods and spring festivals, they were historically absorbed into the Feast of St. George through cultural blending. St. George, known as a warrior figure and protector, became associated with themes of protection, seasonal renewal, and fertility in ways similar to the gods and practices of local cultures. As a result, many pre-Christian spring rituals honored figures like Mars, which is a warrior protector, Pallas, agricultural guardian, Horus, defender against evil, and fertility figures like Harillo and the Green Man became interwoven with St. George's story over time. Festivals honoring St. George often retained elements such as bonfires, livestock blessings, and symbolic battles with evil. Okay, so listen to that, because bonfires will be important as we go forward. Symbolic battles, as we heard about the Royal Shrovetide football, we already saw the themes of symbolic battles with evil against each other in teams of 2 with football. So back to what we were saying, it's highlighted right there, symbolic battles with evil, as seen in the dragon and slaying legend of St. George, aligning with the protective and renewal-focused themes celebrated in the spring. While the feast is named for St. George, the practices reflect ancient seasonal rites rebranded under his name, allowing communities to retain their traditions within a new cultural context. Okay. Interesting. The Feast of St. George is also known as the Blessed Virgin Mary Day. All right. So let's understand where that connection comes from. The connection between, the connection between St. George's feast and its association with the Blessed Virgin Mary, or the Society of Jesus, Jesuits, seems to stem primarily from layers of tradition developed within the Roman Catholic context rather than from the biblical origins or the life of St. George himself. So they're basically like, I don't know where it came from. It's just been tied to this for some reason. All right. Second sentence there. Historically, the Roman Catholic Church has often adapted certain feast days and associations to align with figures or themes that were important to Catholic tradition, including veneration of Mary. The worship of Mary, also called Marianism, and please learn this, please hold on to that. It is key as well. So it's called Marianism when they worship Mary, and is based on that. So here's the connection. I'm just going to break it down for you. The Jesuits and the Society of Jesus worship Mary, which is called Marianism, and the saints. But that is exactly what Catholicism is as well. Catholicism then takes these saints. This is where we jump to the second paragraph there. Within the Roman Catholic tradition, certain saints were elevated and celebrated with feast days that paralleled regional customs. And I'm going to stop right there just a moment, because I want you guys to understand this. As I was saying, the Society of Jesus and the Catholic Church are basically the same. And they worship Mary and the saints and all the gods and goddesses of ancient times, Babylonian, Chaldean, basically the same thing, Roman and Greek. So all the gods they can pack in there to worship other gods is what they do. So just to get that out of the way. Can't hear anything.
The heater.
What?
They're talking about the heater.
Oh, okay, good. Never mind. Let's go back and let's continue on to what I was saying about the Feast of St. George. Okay. St. George was venerated as a protector and military figure. This is the second paragraph. Had his feast day on April 23rd, which aligns with existing springtime celebrations and customs. In some contexts, his day became associated with broader Marian veneration themes, so the worship of Mary, especially as St. George's imagery of fighting a dragon or evil paralleled Catholic views of Mary as a figure overcoming evil. So suddenly he is merging with the worship of Mary as they both seem to mean or foreshadow themselves as a figure of overcoming evil. Okay, so the Society of Jesus, founded in the 16th century by Ignatius of Loyola, placed strong emphasis on Marian devotion as part of its spiritual practices. While the Jesuits didn't originate St. George's feast, they integrated Marian devotion into many aspects of Catholic life and observance. Over time, Marian titles and days of observance were layered into various saints' feasts within Jesuit-influenced regions. Wow, isn't that interesting? Man. Okay, last paragraph. In some Catholic regions, April 23rd began to include both the Feast of St. George and Marian devotions. So then all of a sudden they fully merged. They overlapped each other, and it was known to be worship of Mary instead of St. George, and they were one and the same. This was a way to honor Mary alongside popular saints within Catholic communities, creating combined observances with indirect connections to St. George's original story. Thus, the Blessed Virgin Mary Day for the Society of Jesus isn't at all biblical, but rather a result of historical layering of Roman Catholic traditions over centuries. Okay. Originally, it stemmed from non-biblical practices, later merged with Marian devotion with the Roman Catholic traditions. We know that. Here's the breakdown. In many European countries, processions were common on St. George's Day. So this is how they worship or keep the day, the types of activities. And these often involved Marian images or icons. When I looked at pictures of this, by the way, they had a procession of holding the statue of Mary on their shoulders while they walked it through the streets. So yes, that's definitely there. Participants carried statues, there you go, of Mary and or St. George through towns to invoke protection. So here's they're doing it to invoke something. It's like wearing a crystal on you to say that you're going to be healthy and it's going to keep you healthy. They actually walked these statues through town to accomplish what they would think to bring them protection over communities and agricultural lands. Offerings of flowers and greenery were made to bless the crops and the local environment. Traditionally, this day was used to bless fields, animals, and livestock in preparation for a fruitful season. The blessings, which were adapted into Catholic practices, had roots in earlier springtime rituals dedicated to fertility and the earth. So this is all about worshiping fertility and the earth. The invocation of Mary, so calling upon Mary to do these things, was often added as a way to bring her protective influence over the land, a blend of local beliefs, and Marian veneration. So just combine everything. Why don't you? The worship of the fertility, the harvest, the earth, and Mary, and the local beliefs at the time. It's just crazy. Bonfires. All right. So this is the second time we've seen bonfires in this time of season. They were a common feature, especially in rural communities. They are used to cleanse and purify the land and to drive away evil spirits or lingering winter forces. In some places, these bonfires became Marian vigils, which symbolized Mary's purity and light, though they originally stemmed from seasonal fire rituals. So it's a fire ritual for purification made by the occult world and now is being called the symbol of Mary as she represents purity and light. How crazy is this? This is firsthand an example of how they overlapped and twisted what they call Christian beliefs into pagan ones. All right. The last point there is that people often recited prayers, litanies, and chants, which in a Catholic context invokes Mary's intercession for protection. Okay, protection, health, and fertility. These prayers were meant to be spiritually protective and align with Catholic teachings, but in many cases, they only took on elements of traditional folk magic. This is magic. When you invoke something or a god's presence or protection in your life, this is none other than worshiping another god. Not right. Not at all. Okay, so these are images of it in the Freemason context with the G and square and compass on the flags there on the left. And then they kind of know what's going on, what they're doing. And there's kind of that hidden meaning for the congregation on the right. This would be a Catholic or, more just Catholic congregation keeping this day. The cattle are there to be blessed. The food and first fruits, quote unquote, are there to be blessed in her honor. I don't know. It's just, this is, the hidden meaning behind everything and how it would look. All right. In areas where local folk practices merged with Marian devotion, people would often carry talismans. Okay. If you don't know what that is, it is an object which has been, quote unquote, blessed with the presence of Mary into it. Herbs or a god or power of a demon even or whatever. That's what talismans are. Then herbs or holy water blessed during St. George's Day was used to protect their homes and fields. This use of sacred objects bears resemblance to older pagan charms and protective spells, which became quote-unquote Christianized through Marian associations. Isn't it lovely? Okay. So in some regions, the story of St. George slaying the dragon was reenacted as a symbolic battle between good and evil. Though this event wasn't directly tied to Mary, it became associated with her role as a protector against evil in Catholicism. Oh, how weird. While formal spells were not part of official Catholic practices, as some might think, it always has been actually, by the way, many local customs on St. George's Day included what could be seen as folk magic practices. Charms and blessings for fertility. As we already heard, they had herbs or plants thought to promote fertility and protection, often blessed in Marian rituals to Christianize their use. We just heard that one witch lady saying that she was going to take a plant and bless it and put it on her altar to remind her to treat the earth well and to help heal it. This would tie back to that. Okay, while formal spells were not part of official Catholic practices, we already read that, sorry. Charms and blessings, here we have it. House and field cleansings also happened with bonfires, sprinkling of holy water, and the use of blessed herbs, which were part of cleansing rites meant to protect households and fields from misfortune. Practices that were remnants of pre-Christian, meaning pagan, purification rituals. All right. Wow, there's a lot on this. Of course, I made this presentation, but at the same time, this is a big one. This is one that goes on quite a while. So, not only does it have everything to do with Marian veneration, or aka Catholicism, within certain traditions, it appears to trace back to ancient goddess worship, specifically linked to figures like Semiramis and the practices surrounding Baal worship. Semiramis, a legendary Assyrian queen, was officially connected to the worship of fertility gods like Tammuz and was often depicted, that was her son by the way, and was often depicted as a divine mother figure. This mother and child archetype, prominent in many ancient cultures, became a recurring theme. Again, they know it. This is interesting. They know that it's a recurring theme, which is meaning that they were just renamed different gods' names, but were the same gods over and over again. With a theme in fertility cults across Mesopotamia and Egypt, such as Isis and Horus and Ishtar and Tammuz. As these traditions were integrated into religious practices, Marian imagery began to reflect titles and attributes similar to these ancient goddesses. In particular, the title Queen of Heaven. Ding, ding, ding. Does anyone realize that came from Jeremiah 7:18? We aren't to worship the Queen of Heaven. She's specifically mentioned in the Bible not to have anything to do with. Anyway, continuing. Okay, Queen of Heaven, associated with goddesses like Ishtar and condemned in the Bible, began to appear in Marian devotion. This adaptation effectively rebranded local goddess figures under the Marian identity. Okay, now they're saying that the statues or images of the goddess Ishtar or Semiramis are suddenly Mary. Then they blended traditional maternal and intercessory roles. As we know, in Catholicism, you're supposed to pray to Mary to intercede for you because she's the one who cares for you, not the Father, not Jesus. She makes Jesus aware of what you need help with, apparently. But we don't believe that. If you look at the Bible, it is not at all that role that she has. But they started blending this. They blended all these pagan gods with Marian identity of maternal protection and intercessory roles. With culturally familiar imagery of divine mothers. Thus, Marian veneration, as it developed within these traditions, was influenced by ancient fertility and mother goddess archetypes. The blending of these roles, nurturing, interceding, and protecting, into Marian worship aligns closely with historical goddess worship practices, reflecting syncretism. Now, again, I've talked about this before. Syncretism needs to be known by most people. It means blending of all gods and their worship together in one. You worship all these different gods to get different things out of them, to bless you and protect you in different ways. And all of these gods are held as an equal on most playing levels of worship or spiritual things. Okay, so they used reflected syncretism rather than origins based on biblical teachings. Syncretism, again, is the blending of different religious, cultural, or philosophical beliefs and practices into a unified system, often merging elements from diverse traditions. Okay, so this is the image of Mary merged with an image of St. George slaying the dragon behind her in his mythology, his folk tale, as he is dressed as a knight on a horse. That's his story. But this is quite occult. In esoteric and occult contexts, features like St. George and Mary could be adapted into symbolic rituals, blending protective and nurturing archetypes with nature worship. This is how it comes full circle. Then we have, another one. A different one called St. Mark's Eve or Maundy Thursday. Maundy Thursday, observed in the week leading up to Easter, traditionally commemorates the Last Supper, focusing on Jesus' teachings about humility and service. Over time, certain traditions layered Marian devotion, again, this is an opportunity for them to do so, into Maundy Thursday observances, often emphasizing Mary's sorrow, which was seen as aligning with the themes of sacrifice and compassion. The Jesuits, known for emphasizing Marian devotion, incorporated these elements into their Holy Week practices, adding prayers and devotions centered on Mary's role in the Passion story. No. Yeah. Some scholars suggest that certain Maundy Thursday customs, particularly washing rituals and feasting, echo ancient spring rites of purification and fertility, which were present in Baal worship. Ooh. Wow. Another connection with Baal worship. This is getting intense. Fertility rites at this time of year Thank you. Often included washing or anointing, aimed at ensuring growth and abundance, mirroring aspects of Jesus' foot washing adapted into Maundy Thursday rituals. These echoes, however, are indirect and reflect broader springtime themes rather than direct influences. In Wicca, so in witchcraft, spring rites similarly involve cleansing and renewal, aligning with themes seen in Maundy Thursday. While Wicca, as a formal practice developed in the 20th century, it incorporated ancient seasonal cycles and purification rituals that are symbolically akin to themes of Maundy Thursday's renewal and reflection. Whew. Interesting. So this all starts tying together. Okay. On St. Mark's Eve, the night before that day, which is the night before St. Mark's Day, which is April 25th, is marked by superstitions and traditions such as watching rituals. This was very interesting. I've never heard of such a thing, but this goes into many deep things. It is where people wait at churches or crossroads to see spirits or omens of those who would die in the coming year, as well as divine their true love. I don't know how they connected a true love kind of with dying, but those are the only two things it would tell you: who would die in the coming year and who your true love would be. Marian influences can be seen in the addition of prayers for the deceased. Oh, wow. Okay. This would connect with this is why Catholics light those candles for Mary to hear you and intercede on your behalf as you pray your prayers to Mary. Not true. No, it doesn't hold any biblical or true connection. Anyway, this is why they do it. Especially in Jesuit practices, as it says here, where Mary was often invoked, again, for protection and intercession for souls. Okay, so you can understand how the Jesuit influence is going straight into the Catholic Church and is held there. It is commemorated, it is worshipped broadly. Okay, this syncretic blending of local customs with Marian prayer rebranded ancient practices within the Catholic context. We know that. Okay, so let's go and read about more of these watching rituals. Some of the watching traditions, this is paragraph 2, on St. Mark's Eve recall ancestral worship and divination practices similar to those in Baal and ancient Near Eastern worship, where certain days were set apart for contact with spirits or omens. These practices involved rituals to honor ancestors or seek guidance, which were later adapted into observations like St. Mark's Eve within the framework of Catholic tradition. In modern Wicca, again witchcraft, St. Mark's Eve parallels certain veil-thinning rituals, often observed around those major seasonal points like Samhain, or however you say that, which is actually Halloween, where participants emerge in practices to communicate with spirits or honor the dead. Though not directly linked, St. Mark's Eve watching rituals resemble these practices of seeking omens or messages from beyond the grave, really, beyond in the spirit world. All right? Which is wrong. We shouldn't be communicating with the dead or worshiping ancestors or any of that. It also includes several traditions involving spell casting and herb gathering for protection, divination, and warding off negativity, especially within Wiccan and folk practices. Wiccans and neo-pagans may use St. Mark's Eve to gather potent herbs for protective and divinatory spells, such as rosemary for protection, sage for cleansing, and mugwort for insights. All right, so now they're trying to use herbs for spells and rituals and what is it? Characteristics which you want to be partaking in somehow. Sage for cleansing and mugwort for insights. These herbs are often incorporated into charms or used in rituals aimed at connecting with spirits or enhancing personal protection. Traditional European practices involve collecting specific herbs, so they still do this today in Europe. And it was tradition of that. Specific herbs like yarrow and hawthorn on this night to create protective charms against evil or misfortune. Herbs are meant to be used for good. This is God's medicine, but it is not used the way that they say it is. They use it the wrong way to treat people or for these rituals. So they would often hang them in doorways, these charms, by the way, that they made, or carried in small bags or amulets, believing them to be most effective when gathered on St. Mark's Eve. Historically, cunning folk, such as healers or spiritual practitioners, there you go, there's the fake medicine there, would gather herbs on St. Mark's Eve and use them in blessings or protective spells for their communities. These practices were aimed at protecting homes, ensuring health, and predicting fortunes, drawing on the symbolic power of the evening for added potency in their rituals. These herb collecting and spell casting customs emphasize protection and connection with the spiritual realm. That's really all that it's about. Continuing today in various folk and Wiccan practices. My goodness. Okay, so here is the proof. Here's different things that they use. Sage, fernseed, nuts. Wow, nuts. Interesting. Watching rituals, usually around a church. Peeping into the church to see who goes in, meaning that who doesn't enter will supposedly be in the grave. Become gravely ill, but not fatal. Seeing your own wrath. Wow. And dying shortly after. And so on. I just wanted to give the proof for that. You can go back and read that. And here it is right in again, a Wiccan source. And so with the setting sun of the 24th, we have St. Mark's Eve, they say, set aside as one of the traditional nights for divining the future. This is specifically true for matters of the heart. One of the most common divination spells is as follows. Fast from sunset on St. Mark's Eve and during the night, bake a cake. Here we go, a cake again. You might see a theme, a huge theme, and I hope you recognize it. By now, again, Semiramis, Queen of Heaven, all these goddesses, quite honestly, that God, Jesus, is warning us of in the Bible, they all had cakes again, cakes that were baked for these divination rituals and to honor that goddess. So there's that type of trap. A cake is great, don't get me wrong. It might not be healthy for you, but there are healthy ones to make. But used in this way, again, is wrong. It is wrong. Okay, so let's go back to what I was saying. During the night, they bake a cake that contains an eggshell full of salt, wheat meal, and barley meal. Set the baked cake to cool on the table and leave the door to your house open. Sometimes over the course of the night, your future love will come in and turn the cake. Certainly a spell like this harkens back to simpler times when we were less in need of locking our doors at night, let alone leaving them open. Personally, this witch is writing, I'd go with the security of a locked door and just wait to meet my future love in a more public place. Others use the eve of St. Mark to foresee the shadows of all in the village who would be buried in the churchyard in the coming year. Great fun, of course. Oh, wow. How is that fun? This requires some planning ahead. However, as a spell needs 3 years to work. 3 years. Goodness. But they are dedicated. I will say that. Wiccans in the occult world know, just like us, we have to pray to God, and it's not always an immediate answer. He works things supernaturally out into the natural world that we live in, and sometimes it takes time, years or whatever. And we know that we have to be persistent. They also know this, that Satan works over time to do this as well. When they pray to him or whatever, these gods that are deceptively representing him, he starts putting things into motion also. Of course, he can't do all things. We know that. And he is not as powerful or capable as God. God will always win. And they will not. But I will say that Satan is real, and he does reward or give people what they want, especially when asking upon his name. As a counterfeit of Christ, he does bless deeply in bad ways, but it usually comes with a huge obligation to him that if you do not fulfill, he will be putting you on a what do they call it? A list for assassination, basically. He will take you out. So, just a note on that. Let's go back. Others use this. Oh, we already read that. For each of 3 St. Mark's Eves in a row, you'll need to fast and then spend the hours between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. sitting on the porch of a church, they say. Come the 3rd year in that witching hour, so they know what the witching hour is, you should see a procession pass before you out of the shadows of all who will die in the coming year. As this excerpt from a poem by James Montgomery suggests. So all of a sudden it heralds back to a time when they wrote a poem about this ritual. I didn't want to include it. I don't want to go into it and show people how, but all these things would be used to do this. Oh, I did show it there. The poem is titled The Vigil of St. Mark, but back to matters of the heart. Just as at Halloween, so now they're connecting the dots, as I had mentioned with Samhain, which is Halloween. They said this is a time for a long-standing tradition of divination. So Halloween and St. Mark's Day is all linked to divination rituals by using, let's go back to what it says down below, tradition of divination, the last paragraph there, by nuts on St. Mark's Eve. Nuts, you might think. Very strange. Young women would set a row of nuts on the hot embers of the hearth, one for each girl. Each would breathe the name of their intended into their hearth, and if the love was to be true, the nut would jump away as it got hotter. But if the nut sat there and was consumed by the fire, the love was not meant to be. And they always have poems and things, chants, mantras to speak into existence to manifest it. And it says, the morning brings St. Mark's Day with blessings upon the newly sown crops. Summer will soon be returning. In fact, it's right around the corner. Again, by traditional reckoning of time, May Day is drawing near. So they know that May Day is also, and as we see, that's important to them as well. We'll be getting there. With summer comes the arrival of migratory birds in northern climates, and birds are an important part of the festivities of St. Mark's Day. Cuckoos, is that what that says? In particular, and in England, the cuckoo is also known as St. Mark's Gawk. Wow. The blessings upon the crops go back to a much earlier celebration of late April, the ancient Roman festival of Robigalia, celebrated to appease the mildew spirits and to keep those newly sown crops healthy and thriving. Yes, I did say the witching hour. They did have that on the last. Someone asked about that. And they did say that they would sit there and wait for the witching hour to see what the waiting ritual would show them, who would die in the next coming year. But to continue, we have a new one. A very sad one, I would say. But let's continue here. We see that on April 26th through May 1st, which is May Day, May 1st is May Day, we have what's called Grand Climax. This is a pattern which you will see in the occult world. They have it several times a year, and we'll be showing that. But it's also called the demure, which means, unfortunately, that it's oral, anal, vaginal, and the corpus de Baal. So the corpus of Baal, you are killing that. you're going to be killing that person after you do all that to them. And it has to be a 1 to 25-year-old female. So you've got a range to choose from. And this is what they do in the occult world during that time. Okay, so back to a little bit lighter things. We have Walpurgisnacht, which is Hexanacht or Rude Mass Day. On this day, we have Saint Walpurga, which is a prominent figure in early medieval quote-unquote Christian, which means Catholic, history. Born around 710 AD in Devon, England. She was of a notable lineage within quote-unquote Christian circles or Catholicism, belonging to a family of high status that was influential in spreading Catholicism in Europe. Now just perk up a little bit. This is going to draw a lot of connections for everyone wanting to know about the holidays and also occult holidays and everything. These people have a lot to do with it. Just a minute. Before we begin, we're going to look at who her father was. Her father, so Saint Walpurga's father was Saint Richard the Pilgrim, who was a West Saxon prince. He was known for his devout faith and his journey as a pilgrim to Rome. This earned him the status of saint in his own right within Catholic traditions, reflecting the sanctity and revered status of her family. So, as you might know, when you pilgrimage to Rome and do all of the, kissing stairs or whatever rituals, you are said to be brought up to the rank of saint. At least he might have done it a certain amount of times that earned him that title. But that just shows you how doing certain physical things somehow that the Catholic Church says will earn you sainthood, but is not true. So her brother, which is Saint Willibald, she has two brothers, by the way. One is Saint Willibald. He was an equally significant figure in the Catholic Church. He became the Bishop of Eichstätt in Bavaria, a highly influential position, and was instrumental in founding monastic communities. So he founded monasteries, if you will. Willibald was later canonized as a saint as well, celebrated for his missionary work and dedication to the spread of Catholicism in Germany. Her other brother, Saint Winibald, also held a significant role in the church. He became an abbot and a missionary in Germany, eventually founding the monastery at Heidenheim, where he served as abbot. He was known for his role in establishing the Catholic faith in what was then pagan territory, and like his siblings, was later canonized as a saint. Saint Boniface, often regarded as the apostle of the Germans, was actually her uncle, and one of the most important figures in the Christianization, quote-unquote, of Germany. He was a close advisor to the papacy and was instrumental in organizing the church's hierarchy in German lands. Is this ringing a bell? This is kind of like the world of elites at that time. They were all in cahoots with the papacy and would do anything he asked them to do. Then they go and do all this, and they're devout to the Catholic Church, and they all became saints and renowned people within the world and Christian faith or Catholic faith. And there you go. This is like the renowned Catholic but occult world of the elites rising to power for this time period. And he was I already read that part. I'm sorry. His missionary work, last sentence, earned him high status within the church. And he became a central figure in Walpurga's life, providing her with spiritual guidance and support in her own missionary work. Okay? So this family in itself was always heavenly and supposedly the best. But Walpurga herself became an abbess. So her brother was one of the first, or at least the first renowned abbot. For herself, she became one of the most famous first abbesses, overseeing the dual monastery of Heidenheim, where she led both monks and nuns, a rare and respected position in her time. Her family's recognition in the church greatly influenced her path and her sanctification as a saint after her death, which was likely propelled by her family's religious legacy. Of course, it's from who you know and how your family, if your family was famous and popular or kind of like Hollywood, then you are. However, her close association with Walpurgisnacht, a night traditionally marked by pagan rituals, has led many to scrutinize her veneration, and I would say for good reason. As the blending of Catholic rituals with mystical and pagan customs is what you get here. Please listen up. This is why that matters. Walpurgisnacht is clearly, as you will see, of pagan origin, and yet she is known on the same day as that day. She is the woman of, supposedly the saint of that day. Okay, those are my sources on that. But examining her canonization, we have associations with Walpurgisnacht again, which I was going to mention. Oh, the contradictory symbolism surrounding her reveals several non-coincidental connections that showcase Catholicism's integration of pagan symbolism, especially as it relates to concept of magic and mysticism. Perk up, please listen up. This is going to get really interesting right here. Number 1, canonization and pagan timing. Saint Walpurga was canonized centuries after her death, with her feast date set close to May Day, aligning with ancient pagan spiritual spring rituals. Her feast day on May 1st and the night preceding it, which is April 30th, called Walpurgisnacht, was a traditional night for pagan festivities aimed at warding off evil spirits. Does this sound kind of witchy? This association with a night marked by mystical traditions of bonfires, chants, and symbolic protections against dark forces aligns her story with pagan customs rather than any biblical teachings. Very true. And we're going to see even deeper why. Number 2, her contradictory role in warding off witchcraft. Saint Walpurga's role in warding off evil or being invoked against witchcraft appears paradoxical. That's what she was known of. That day was supposedly you call on her, you invoke her spirit, and it's supposed to protect you from witchcraft. However, while the church promoted her as a saint with protective powers, invoking her name against evil and magic reflects a kind of symbolic magic. So it's almost as though they are promoting and teaching you how to use magic yourself. That parallels the very practices it claims to oppose. I'd say so. That's very true. This contradiction is characteristic of Catholic syncretism, where figures from pre-Christian, meaning pagan or cultural traditions, are repurposed for new roles without fully shedding their original mystical associations. We're going to go even deeper. It's going to be really cool. Hang in there. Number 3, St. Walpurga's appearance in contemporary works like Harry Potter. She actually is represented and shows up in Harry Potter. Did anyone know that? Please tell me in the comments if you did. Where she is depicted in relation to wizarding, the wizarding world, and underscores her connection to mystical and supernatural themes. Her character serves as a symbolic nod to her real-world associations with rituals and pagan customs. A subtle but clear representation of her dual identity as a saint associated with both warding off spirits and conjuring up spirits. Ooh, interesting. I got this from an occult source, by the way, so that we kind of know what's going on. Number 4, the accounts of miraculous oil flowing from St. Walpurga's relics are steeped in supernatural language, suggesting an influence beyond what's seen in typical biblical miracles. Yeah, that is not right. This miraculous substance was believed to have healing properties, reinforcing her role as a mystical figure. In ancient cultures, the concept of healing oils, there you go, mystical liquids, or sacred spring water was widespread. And that's why you have the sprinkling. Does any of this ring a bell for people? I have to laugh again. The sprinkling of water, the dousing, I don't know what you want to call it, when they start sprinkling things on you in the church, the Catholic Church, was seen, as it says there, and the Catholics' adoption of such imagery as St. Walpurga's veneration again mirrors these non-biblical practices of paganism. These connections collectively reflect how St. Walburga's story was adapted to fit a dual narrative. The church emphasizes her saintly power to protect from evil, yet her origins and associations tie very much back to the very mystical and ritualistic practices it says it sought to distance itself from, highlighting the contradictory and non-coincidental links between her veneration and pagan customs. Again, it's going to get even deeper. So this is why it matters so much. Walpurgisnacht or Hexenacht or Rude Mass Day. Those familiar with St. Walburga in Harry Potter could definitely say she is a witch, because one would argue that she is. Very interesting. So the Catholic Church is venerating a witch. This statement reflects her cultural transformation into a symbol of mystical and supernatural associations, further underlying her ties to witchcraft and magic. Her popularization in Harry Potter as part of the wizarding world directly aligns her with magic rather than solely saintly qualities, linking her to the broader themes of Hexenacht, which is called Witches' Night, celebrated on April 30th. Okay. So this portrayal is not coincidental, they say. St. Walburga's feast day aligns with Hexenacht completely. On the same day, a night historically associated with rituals to protect against witchcraft, and she becomes part of a dual narrative. While ostensibly a saint means to ward off evil, her role and timing also makes her a powerful figure connected to the very practices the church claims to oppose. This is the second time they've said it. Interesting. It is very true. In this context, her veneration and recognition within popular culture, especially through media that openly celebrates witchcraft, further emphasizes the integration of non-biblical symbolism and blending of pagan practices within Catholic traditions. Her legacy, therefore, becomes the one deeply intertwined with both protective magic. Here we go. She is known for being part of protective magic and witchcraft, underscoring the contradictions of her being a venerated saint of the Catholic Church. Okay. Let's see a little bit more of what's going on. St. Walburga's rise, that's hard to say. St. Walburga's rise to the position of abbess was quite rare dual monastery. A community housing both men and women under her leadership is particularly notable. This is very rare. Dual monasteries were uncommon, especially during the early medieval period, and required significant trust and influence. Her appointment to lead this kind of monastery raises questions about her connections. Yeah, you would be like, well, who do you know? And means by which she attained such a status, suggesting that her role may have been part of a larger strategy of Christianization that allowed pre-Christian, such as pagan and mystical, beliefs to persist into the Catholic structures. Yeah, one could say that. No kidding. The establishment of these dual monasteries allowed the church to merge distinct communities, men and women, under one saintly figure's authority. Too bad they didn't know if she was a witch. But Walburga's leadership would have required her to be seen as deeply spiritual and influential, but her elevation was also likely influenced by her alignment with traditions that included mystical or protective powers associated with saints. By appointing her as the abbess, the church may have strategically capitalized. Here's another key point. The Catholic Church always puts these people into positions of power to influence the world culturally. And she was used in this way, it says. They capitalized on her perceived connection to the mystical world to sway pagan communities who might otherwise resist Christianity, what they call Christianity. This position of power further reinforces the idea that her role was not just a pious leader, but a symbolic figure. Her connection to the Night of Walpurgisnacht, a time steeped in ritual and protective magic, alongside her veneration, implies that her saintly identity was intertwined with the church's blending of local practices into Catholic rites. Yes. It suggests that Walpurga was not just a passive recipient of sainthood, but an emblem of the church's approach to incorporating influential figures with mystical ties, masking pagan principles or practices with sanctified titles and presenting them under the guise of Catholic sainthood. Her prominence, therefore, likely indicates she was part of an inner circle. Here we go. I said she was kind of like the inner circle of the elites. Yes, okay. The inner circle that aligned with the church's acceptance of pagan traditions under the label of Christianization. This dual role, part leader, part figurehead for a ritualistic heritage, would position her within a framework that was neither purely biblical nor exclusively quote-unquote Christian, but reflective of Catholicism's complex and often contradictory embrace of non-biblical customs. As you will see, quite honestly, as you'll see over and over again in the Catholic Church. So this is purely giving you the facts to understand where all this comes from. But it's hard because it's unpacking it, and no, we're not against, Catholics or any other religion. We want to give the truth to people to set them free of worshiping other gods and being deceived by Satan into doing these things or being part of his deceptions and trickery. So let's continue. This night, also known as Hexanacht or Witches' Night, is traditionally a time when witches, here we go, it's going to fully show you what used to be done on that night by the witches and how it overlaps. It's traditionally a time when witches were believed to gather for rituals of magic, often atop mountains or secluded spaces. Again, it's so interesting that this is all connected. They said groves in the last holiday we were looking at. And now they have hillsides, secluded spaces, and mountaintops. In European folklore, this night was seen as one of the most powerful times for supernatural gatherings. When witches would convene, excuse me, it's a lot of reading. When witches would convene to invoke spirits, cast spells, and celebrate rites of fertility and renewal. Goodness. Historically, while Berganacht rituals included bonfires, again, the bonfires, man, they were lit to ward off evil spirits, and these fires served a dual purpose. While outwardly meaning to drive away darkness, they were also believed to amplify magical energy, providing witches with a protective space to conduct their ceremonies. Kind of like when they draw a circle or cast their circle around a pentagram or a fire before they start doing the chanting and dancing and all this stuff to call upon demons and evil spirits usually. So there you go, the chants and incantations. Witches were thought to chant spells or invoke various deities or spirits. They do. But drawing on ancient pagan traditions, these incantations would typically be focused on blessing the land, ensuring fertility for the crops, and strengthening their own magical powers. Okay. Potion brewing and herb gathering. This was common for practitioners to collect herbs, especially those associated with protection or healing, to brew their potions or tonics. These rituals were believed to imbue the herbs with heightened potency during this mystical night. Okay, dancing in circles was another essential element, okay? Symbolizing unity and protection. Circular movement was thought to create a boundary against negative energies, allowing practitioners to safely call on the spirits without interference. Yeah, this is a hugely sounding, of course, like witchcraft, because it is, and yet she's associated with this day. Weird. So this is what it looks like most of the time when they do this. Lots of people gather and do this all together. So they would have offerings and sacrifices offered symbolically to appease local spirits or gods. These offerings would be food, small trinkets, or symbolic items intended to invite favor and protection. These gatherings on Walpurgisnacht are significant not just for their symbolism, but their alignment with the themes of protection and fertility. This is interesting. When the church placed St. Walburga's feast day on May 1st, aligning her with this night of witch gatherings, it was clearly more than a coincidence. Would anyone else care to agree with that? I would. The choice allowed the church to subtly Christianize the night while still recognizing and indirectly preserving its pagan and magical significance. So they almost preserved it and lifted it up to others. The association of St. Walburga with a night known for gatherings of witches reflects Catholicism's tendency to absorb and reframe local practices, masking pagan rituals with saintly associations. By transforming the night's meaning under Walburga's saintly protection, the church could appear to ward off evil, even as it preserved a night of deeply mystical and non-biblical practices. Wow, there's more. Rude Mass. Now, some might, and I would ask, why is this called that? All right. It is a term historically associated with the Feast of the Exaltation of the Holy Cross. Oh boy. Which is celebrated on September 14th in the Catholic Church. The word rude is an Old English term for the cross or crucifix, specifically referring to the large crosses often displayed in medieval churches. Mass refers to the celebration of the Eucharist. So Rude Mass signifies a day dedicated to venerating the cross. So worshiping the cross, that's what venerating means, by the way, on which Jesus was crucified, they say. Here's how Rude Mass connects to St. Walburga and Walpurgisnacht. Interesting. Whew. Number 1, symbolic cross imagery and pagan rituals. The association of Rude Mass with the cross, which is central to Catholic symbolism. I hope that's no surprise to people. I know when I learned this, it was, and it can be a hard one to swallow, but as we're going to see, yes, it's connected very much with these pagan things and the Catholic symbolism. It is likely served to Christianize certain pagan practices. Just as Rude Mass celebrates the power of the cross, Walpurgisnacht was adapted into Catholic tradition, with Saint Walburga invoked as a saint who wards off evil. Both Rude Mass and Walpurgisnacht fall into the Church's pattern of reinterpreting pagan festivities with Christian, quote-unquote Christian meaning, using powerful symbols like the cross and saints to replace traditional pagan iconography. So number 2, spring festivals and protective rituals. Rude Mass is sometimes linked with springtime celebrations, as crosses, often floral or green, were used in agricultural rites and rituals to bless crops and protect them from harm. This is similar to Walpurgisnacht's function as a night of protection and purification, intended to ward off evil spirits and invoke blessings for the coming season. The Catholic Church may have used the symbol of the cross on Rude Mass to overlay these springtime protections, just as it did with St. Walburga and Walpurgisnacht. Okay, so there's that connection. Walpurgisnacht, number 3, Rude Mass and syncretism with Walpurgisnacht. Though celebrated months apart, Rude Mass and Walpurgisnacht share roots in this syncretism, where Catholic symbolism becomes intertwined with pagan beliefs about protection and fertility. Both days serve as examples of how the Church used familiar symbols such as the cross for Rude Mass and saints for Walpurgisnacht to reframe existing customs, creating a hybrid tradition that retained pagan significance under a Christian guise. While Rude Mass itself does not directly relate to Walpurgisnacht, the connection lies in the Church's pattern of overlaying Christian, quote-unquote Christian, which means Catholic symbols on pagan traditions to encourage conversion and integration, using figures like St. Walburga or symbols like the cross to infuse non-biblical practices with quote-unquote Catholic or Christian significance. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. So this is, not that you guys probably, that's what it would look like when the occult world is worshiping and doing this. They have the cross and someone hanging on it as well. And they have, the pentagram and their circle cast, and they're invoking all these demons and protective rites and rituals. And then we have this kind of symbol, which is where you have basically the same thing going on. That's what I'm showing there. But it's claiming to be Christ who died on the cross for you, whether quite honestly, the cross was used as basically a charm, a talisman for these occult people in the witchcraft world to, as they were saying, maybe I can go back. As they were saying, it was used actually to almost invoke the demons. That's how I would reframe it. But this is where the Catholic Church, a supposed holy congregation of people, come together and do the same thing, just the way that the occult world would, but say that it's because of a different reason, a spiritual reason, which is false. So here we go. We're going to actually explain it a little deeper. The cross symbol predates Christianity. Whether this is real Christianity or fake Christianity, which is Catholicism, it has associations with various ancient deities, including Tammuz, a figure in ancient Mesopotamian religion. In Babylonian and Sumerian mythology, Tammuz was a god of fertility, vegetation, and renewal, celebrated in spring rites that symbolized death and rebirth. The cross symbol, particularly in its T-shape or Tau cross, as we know it to be, is linked to Tammuz and was used as a symbol of life and renewal in pre-Christian, meaning pagan cultures. This use of the cross as a symbol of life, death, and rebirth parallels many aspects of Catholic symbolism, even though it is not rooted in biblical Christianity. When the Catholic Church incorporated the cross into its iconography, it adopted a symbol already laden with layers of meaning from pagan traditions. Just as Tammuz's cross represented renewal and the cycle of life and death, the cross in Catholicism became a symbol of resurrection and redemption. This was not a new concept, but rather it echoed ancient rites that celebrated cyclical renewal and divine sacrifice. How does that connect with Walpurga and Walpurgisnacht? Well, they use this symbol in witchcraft as well. Both Walpurgisnacht and the cross reflect how the Catholic Church, rebranded ancient symbols and practices under a Catholic context. Walpurgisnacht, a night with deep pagan roots, involved rituals of fertility, protection, and purification. It was linked by Saint Walpurga and her feast day. Similarly, the cross, originally linked to Tammuz and fertility rites, was adopted as a central symbol within Catholicism, despite its non-biblical origins. Non-biblical meaning that it was definitely, Jesus did die on a cross for us, and that is powerful, but I'll just give my input here. Usually when you wear a cross, you think it's a Christian symbol, but why do the rappers do it? Well, this is exactly why. They wear it as a pagan symbol, quite honestly, to invoke their gods, their demons, and so on. And it was actually used, as I know it from all my research, and I've said this in a different episode, it was used against Christ when he was put on it to actually try to make him subservient to that god Tammuz. That's why it was in a T, that's why it represented Tammuz, but he would not be subservient to it. He rose again, and Tammuz is supposed to be a god of renewal and rebirth, but Jesus showed himself to be Lord of that and the only God who can actually do that. That's why it matters to us, but that doesn't mean we should be having, at least in my personal opinion, that doesn't mean we should be using the cross or wearing it or memorializing it that much, because it actually isn't a good thing. You usually do see it around people's necks who are very atheist and very occult, and that's why, because they know exactly what it stands for, and it's not a Christian thing. So let's continue on. All right. They sanctified pagan elements, such as the cross associated. We already know that. The connection of Saint Walpurga to Walpurgisnacht and her role as protector against witchcraft mirrors the reworking of pagan symbols to appear as Catholic traditions, while retaining their original essence and purpose in disguise. Both the cross of Tammuz and the rites associated with Walpurgisnacht involve themes of renewal, protection, and life cycles, which the Church mirrored in its narrative of the cross as a symbol of Christ's resurrection and St. Walpurga's role in warding off evil. So they just keep telling you it's Jesus. It's about Jesus and Christ's resurrection, but it's not. It's really about all the pagan stuff behind it that they are still worshiping. And that's why they're attached to this. That's why they still do it. These elements are not coincidental, but are rooted in long-standing patterns of incorporating symbols familiar to pagans into a Catholic framework, effectively blending ancient non-biblical practices with the Catholic ritual. This blending illustrates a strategic syncretism, where the Catholic Church adopted and adapts symbols like the cross rooted in Tammuz worship, and whilst Perganoct practices, repurposing them to fit a Catholic narrative while maintaining a connection to their original meanings, effectively bridging pagan beliefs with Catholicism. Okay, that's done. Now, May 1st, known as Beltane in the Wiccan world, which is actually called Walpurga's Feast. So, May Day. It, unfortunately, is linked with the occult world above in that chart of satanic ritual abuse known as the Druid Fire Festival and Coven Initiations. That's what they do on that day. And the Beltane Festival originated from the ancient Celtic traditions, is known as a fire festival that marks the beginning of May and celebrates fertility, growth, and the renewed vitality of spring. So you see the same pattern and themes within all of this that we're talking about, really. But it is typically celebrated, Beltane is, on April 30th into May 1st. It's one of the key, so there you go. They actually put those together with Walpurganacht and May 1st as a very key, important 2 days that you worship. It is one of the key festivals in the Wheel of the Year, observing by ancient Druids and modern pagans alike. The festival is rooted in fire rituals and symbolic actions meant to honor the life-giving forces of nature, protect livestock and crops, and initiate individuals into spiritual paths. Its transformation into May Day highlights the church's syncretic approach to adapting, again, pagan traditions into a benign, cultural, or spiritual day that really had no kind of origin like that. Fire rituals. At its core, Beltane was a fire festival, with large bonfires symbolizing the sun's life-giving energy. Participants would light those fires to purify and protect both people and animals. Livestock were often driven between two Beltane fires as a protective ritual, believing to guard them from disease and bless them with fertility and health for the coming year. I like to pause right there. This is important because as God talks about this whole do not have your children pass through the fire, here they're not just passing people through this fire. They would, do other rituals like we're going to see, but you burn the fire to supposedly have good luck or good growing in the next year, but they would actually pass animals through the fire to do this. Do you see how obvious that starts standing out in your brain that the Bible was talking exactly about this? That this is Baal worship, the very kind that they are warning us against. Not to have anything pass through the fire as a ritual to the gods or to Satan, really, or Baal. Why can't we see this and realize it? I hope now that I brought it to your attention that it makes sense and that you'll realize it from now on. Let's continue. So, at its core, it was a fire festival, protecting both people and animals. They were driven through it, okay? Fertility and renewal celebrations. Beltane marked the beginning of the planting season, and its rituals focused on the fertility of the land, animals, and people. Traditionally, celebrants would engage in dances, often weaving ribbons around a maypole. There you go, maypoles. And yet, again, please go and listen to my other presentations on Who is the Rain Man and androgyny and so on, because I break down what the maypole is. And it says right here, a phallic symbol representing fertility to invoke blessings of abundance. That's where they would rise up to worship Ishtar or Easter. And they would take those maypole ribbons and do the whole thing, but that they would do that right when the sun came up at dawn, as Ishtar is the goddess of the dawn, and so is Miramis and these other gods, Oester, and they are all the same, but when they were goddesses of the dawn, you would have the sun come onto you at the dawn, and this would begin a maypole orgy, basically. Okay, and that was supposed to invoke blessings of abundance. Couples would also participate in hand fasting ceremonies. This is very occult, which they bind their hands together as a form of trial marriage for a year and a day. Okay. This is what it looks like in the pagan occult world. They still keep this a lot in the European areas. They will just have this openly at like a park or whatever, and people are dressed like it, kind of like a Renaissance fair. And they will invite all passerbyers and strangers to participate. Of course, they don't do usually, unless they have tents and stuff. I'm sure you can find crazy places where the orgies will still happen, but that's not usually in the public eye. They will usually just have you participate in the minor maypole ribbons and stuff that signifies and symbolizes a lot of this pagan junk. Okay. So, May 1st, Beltane, Walpurga's Feast. This would be coven initiations and spiritual connections. It was also a traditional time for initiations into covens or druid orders. Okay, that should tell you a lot. During this festival, initiates would undergo symbolic rites of passage to align themselves with the rhythms of nature and the mystical world. For druids, this festival marked a profound connection to their gods and spirits. And Beltane became a time to deepen one's spiritual bond and solidify commitment to the spiritual path. How it became May Day. Let's talk about this. As Catholicism spread through Europe, the church adopted many elements of Beltane and rebranded it as May Day. Here's how. Number 1, maypole dancing and floral symbols. This maypole dance was rooted in ancient Beltane customs, but it was retained as a central feature of May Day. Dancers would bind ribbons around the pole, representing the weaving together of masculine and female energies. This tradition, though now secular, retained the pagan themes of fertility and unity, a reflection of Beltane's symbolism. Number 2, May Queens and Green Men. So here you are, you're actually dressing up like basically the Queen of Heaven, and you're rebranded and crowned a May Queen. Symbolizing the goddess of spring and fertility. And then there's men who are becoming and dressed like green men, the god we talked about, representing nature's rebirth. These figures definitely harken back to ancient deities associated with Beltane and were retained as quote-unquote Christianized May Day celebrations by the Catholic Church. This is also, again, from an occult temple of the old religion, Circle of the Sacred Grove, in which they talk about what you do with the maypole. Here is the one of our coven, which it follows. The maypole is a phallic symbol. It is inserted into a hole in Mother Earth. Okay, so here's where the sexual part of things is not only a act that they carry out, but it also is what they say that Mother Earth goes through every year they do this, to represent the act of the goddess and God making love so they can conceive the divine child. As men and women weave around the maypole, the flower wreath, at the top, slowly it comes down. Once it hits the ground, conception is at hand. So that's what they say. The weaving of the ribbons happen all the way down to the ground until conception happens. But let's look deeper into the meaning of the maypole, they say. That was enough for me. I wasn't going to look any deeper. I knew it was going to get dirty. So it says, during Beltane, coven initiation rituals were traditionally carried out to align new members with the energies of the season, symbolizing rebirth, renewal, and commitment. Here's an overview of how that would look usually. Purification by fire and water. Does this harken back at all to people who are in Hinduism? They do purification by water, rituals all the time. They have to do this every day to be, a Brahmin. I think a Brahmin. And so here you have other cultures. Religions that we can truly look at and go, okay, this is actually Baal worship as well. Fire is central in Beltane, symbolizing purification and transformation. Initiates would often pass between two bonfires, a practice dating back to ancient Celtic customs, believed to cleanse them of impurities and negative energies. In some traditions, initiates may also be lightly sprinkled or anointed with water. Okay, again, does this sound like the Catholic Church? Yes. symbolizing their rebirth into the coven in connection with nature's elements. Okay, so I just have to think about this. I need to talk to you guys for a minute. So you have this sprinkling and you have passing through the fire, which is Baal worship. Baal is known as Nimrod started Baal worship and his child Tammuz. When people on Ash Wednesday get that cross painted on their forehead, guess what that stands for? This is getting me excited. I'm sorry. I'm getting nervous. It's Tammuz. It signifies you are initiate. It even says that, initiate of Tammuz. Because of the Tau cross that is being painted on your head with ashes. So just a little connection there. It's kind of interesting. All right. So, sacred oaths and binding rituals. New initiates would take sacred oaths of loyalty to the coven and its members. These oaths often include a promise to honor the coven's code of secrecy. Okay. Does anyone think this sounds like Freemasonry? Secrecy. Actually, that's all of Kabbalism, the occult world, Gnosticism, paganism, Freemasonry, the Wiccan world. Did I say Kabbalism already or whatever? Yes, it's all of it. They even have this. I hate to say this, but in Judaism, when they have the Kabbalah, which is integral to Judaism, they have several codes of secrecy that you have to keep. They have to uphold its values and commit to spiritual growth as well. In the Wiccan or Druidic traditions, initiates sometimes wear cords or are bound symbolically with ribbons to signify their bond. I hate to say that sounds like Judaism as well, or Kabbalism, the red cord around bracelet around your hand, representing a commitment to the coven and the sacred path. Nature, communion, and grounding ceremonies are also involved. Coven initiations often involve connecting deeply with the natural world, especially in outdoor settings. Initiates may participate in a grounding ritual. Okay, so here's where grounding comes in, where they connect physically and spiritually with the earth, such as by placing their hands or feet on the ground or embracing trees. So tree hugging is, I guess, more or less involved in the themes we've been seeing in worshiping Mother Earth or Terra Mater and green, all the earth, basically, Mother Earth. The gods that represent a mother who gave birth to the earth. These practices are meant to align them with nature's energies and prepare them for responsibilities of their spiritual journey. Now, one note on that, just because they use grounding doesn't mean grounding, like getting your shoe off your foot and actually walking in grass and stuff, isn't good for you. We should break away from a lot of the cultural binding in shoes all the time. So grounding can be helpful, and it actually does seem to, there's a chemical in dirt, I did a whole paper on this, that actually is therapeutic to your body. When you have contact with the skin, with that chemical in the dirt, you actually get somewhat of a release of endorphins that help you heal from things. So grounding can be helpful. I'm not sure I'd call it grounding, but just go and walk. Walk in a natural setting, barefooted, and it'll actually help your health. Okay. Anointing and naming ceremonies. Initiates would receive anointment with oils or herbs believed to have protective and purifying properties, such as frankincense or myrrh. Okay, so here's where they are the counterfeit of what Jesus is and what he was given. This is often done in combination with the giving of a craft name or spiritual name, which represents their new identity within the coven. They usually have two different names, like they're saying one name for the public world to know you by and one for your coven fellows, I guess, or whatever you call them. This name is typically chosen based on characteristics or symbols meaningful to the initiate and reflects their inner nature or aspirations. Kind of like, what's your spiritual animal or whatever. Number 5, circle casting and elemental invocation. Many covens perform an elemental invocation where the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water, excuse me, are called upon to bless and empower the initiate. Battery. In a sacred circle, coven members may stand in each direction, north, east, south, and west. Ooh. Okay, does this sound like the elders that were seen in the temple turning towards the east and so on? And worshiping other gods? It should. To represent the elements, invoking their powers to offer protection, guidance, and strength to a new member. Symbolic death and rebirth. A powerful aspect of initiation is the symbolic death and rebirth, where the initiate dies to their previous life and is reborn into the spiritual path. This can involve rituals such as kneeling, blindfolding. Okay, here's kind of like the hazing thing. Or leading the initiate through a labyrinth or darkened path to emerge into light. This rebirth represents their new role and identity within the coven. Blessing by the high priest or priestess. In many covens, the initiation is led by a high priest or priestess who offers blessings and words of guidance. They may place a ritual item, such as a thame, a ritual, a ceremonial knife, like you may have seen Anton LaVey actually has a video on this and how the knife is ceremonial and symbolic and all this stuff. It really isn't very good. A wand or chalice upon the initiate, symbolizing the transference of wisdom, protection, and the empowerment of the coven's lineage. Celebration and feasts also. Following the initiation, a celebratory feast often takes place, symbolizing the unity and shared journey of the coven. Foods associated with Beltane, like honey cakes, there you go with the cake, fruits and wine are shared as an offering to the earth and as a symbol of abundance and fellowship. Now here's an interesting thing. These initiation rites underscore the significance supposedly of Beltane as a time of renewed spiritual connection, both for the individual and the coven. The rituals are designated not only to welcome new members, but also to align them with the coven's spiritual beliefs and practices, deeply rooted in the energies of nature and the symbolism of life's cycles. The connection between Beltane being called Joseph the Worker. This may blow your mind. It's totally crazy. So it is actually called, another name for Beltane, which is the Wiccan Sabbath, or Sabbath for them, is also called Joseph the Worker. It lies in the Catholic Church's rebranding of May 1st to honor Saint Joseph, the patron saint of workers. This adaptation was likely an attempt to align with the significance of May Day, a day traditionally celebrating spring's renewal and fertility in Beltane rites. By dedicating May 1st to Saint Joseph in 1955, the Church sought to provide an alternative to both Beltane pagan celebrations and the international labor movement's observance of May Day. So here's where labor movements, such as Labor Day, came in. This shift symbolically redirected the focus from seasonal and fertility rites to honoring hard work and humility, contrasting Beltane's celebration of life cycles and Catholic ideals of labor and dedication. Whew. Okay, I hope you guys are eating this up. It's a lot, I know, and we're just going to plug through it because we have to still continue. We have a lot to go through still, so please bear with me. All right, Cinco de Mayo. May 5th has pagan roots closely tied to the celebration of Beltane, an ancient Celtic festival that we just spoke about. Beltane is traditionally celebrated on May 1st, but in some regions and traditions, festivities extended into the first week of May, making May 5th a continuation of the themes associated with Beltane. Here's how it connects. Beltane, celebrated around May 1st, is the Celtic festival. We saw that. It's a fire festival honoring life, growth, and the energy of the sun. Oh, here's where the sun comes in. They were just truthful in there. They slipped a little nugget of truth in there. It actually celebrates the energy of the sun. Interesting. With traditions that include dancing around a maypole, lighting bonfires, and decorating with flowers. By May 5th, Beltane celebrations would often still be ongoing, especially in regions where the festival was celebrated over several days. This was a time to bless crops and livestock for fertility, ensuring a fruitful growing season. The seasonal and agricultural fertility festivals of May Early May indeed existed long before Cinco de Mayo and is associated with the existed long before Cinco de Mayo was actually associated with Mexican victory over the French. That's the reason that they give us today for actually having Cinco de Mayo, that the Mexicans got victory from the French, but in fact it is not true from what I'm finding out. It is exactly this. They're worshiping Beltane as well. So keep that in mind. Pre-Columbian civilizations like the Aztecs and Mayans had their own springtime and early summer celebrations rooted in the cycles of nature as well. Agriculture and the rain gods, timed to a sign with planting seasons and in the return of rain. Aztec festivals. The Aztecs had a ritual cycle in early May dedicated to Tlaloc, the god of rain, and Chalchihuitlicu, goddess of rivers and waters, asking for rain to ensure festival crops and a bountiful harvest. So now they're even telling you what gods they're worshiping that are actually the same again. They're counterfeits of Nimrod and Semiramis and Ishtar and everything again. Mayan celebrations. Similarly, the Mayans honored Chak, the rain god, in festivals to bring on the rains that would support crops like maize, central to their survival. These indigenous spring festivals involved rituals, dances, offerings, and prayers. So the same kind of thing. They embody the deeper ancient connection to the land and seasons that predated the arrival of the Spanish and the eventual rise of Cinco de Mayo. So while May 5th became a historical commemoration over time, the pagan roots of honoring nature and deities in early May are actually part of an older heritage that predates the colonial and nationalistic layers that later were associated with the date. Even in Gaelic cultures, the first few days of May are dedicated to Beltane observances and served as a significant transition between seasons. The timing of it overlapping with May 5th holds special relevance for Gaelic people, as it is considered a powerful time for protection rituals. Here we go, protection magic, protection rituals, where fires were lit to safeguard against evil spirits and to bless homes, people, and livestock. So, we come to May 14th, Mother's Day. Okay, just a moment. Lots of water for the throat. So, the origins of Mother's Day. Unfortunately, as you can see from the first sentence, it is also traced back to pagan festivals before it was actually made. Oh, pagan festivals, by the way, celebrating mother deities and the concept of Mother Earth once again. Ancient cultures around the world held festivals honoring motherhood and the feminine, life-giving forces of nature. Here are the few key examples. In ancient Greece, they had the festival of Rhea, where they celebrated Rhea, the mother of gods and goddesses of fertility and motherhood, with springtime festivals. All right. They also had powerful gods associated with her like Zeus, Hera, and Poseidon. These celebrations focused on gratitude for fertility, creation, and growth. Ancient Rome also had the festival of Cybele, which was called Hilaria, to honor Cybele, known as the Great Mother or Magna Mater, during the spring equinox in the late March. Cybele was a mother goddess associated with fertility, nature, and abundance. So here's where it overlaps. So we have Rhea, we have Cybele, we have Mothering Sunday, which I'm sure perhaps you haven't heard of. In Celtic and British traditions in Britain, Mothering Sunday emerged from the Middle Ages as a day where people returned to their mother church, the Catholic church they had grown up in their area, and reunited with family. While it was later adapted into a Christian observance, it retains elements of honoring and nurturing mother concept connected to both church and family. Number 4, the Mother Earth celebrations. Of course, we talked about Mother Earth and also early pagan celebrations of motherhood. Whether it was through the goddesses, the earth, or other feminine deities, it emphasized themes of renewal, nurturing, and sacred cycle of life. It has definitely influenced traditions of modern Mother's Day observances, transforming ancient reverence for Mother Earth and fertility into a day to honor human mothers, while still echoing the original theme of gratitude for nurturing and life. Okay? So this is a woman who was actually given credibility for basically creating Mother's Day into what it is today. Her name was Anna Jarvis, and she wanted to honor her mother and all mothers in some instances, which takes us back to ancestor worship, really. Practices like visiting grave sites, laying flowers, and wearing white carnations were especially used by her for deceased mothers, reflecting elements of ancestor veneration. Over time, idealizing mothers and honoring their memories annually introduced a reverential, ritualistic tone that resembled ancestor worship. As the holiday spread globally, it sometimes merged with existing customs of honoring the dead, further embedding these practices and elevating the remembrance of mothers beyond simple tribute. All right. We come to May 24th. This is called, on May 24th, it is called Our Lady of the Way. It is said to have both Christian, meaning Catholic spread of quote-unquote Christianity, and pre-Christian or pagan traditions. Also rooted in Marian devotion, which would draw on motives from pagan mother goddess figures as well, and local deity worship that preceded Catholicism. This title, especially in its origins in Europe, may have connections to older goddess traditions that represented guidance, protection, and the journey of life. A common theme in pagan religions where goddesses such as Isis in Egypt, beliefs, and Artemis or Diana in Greco-Roman traditions were seen as protectors of travelers and paths. In ancient pagan Rome, the concept of a protective figure for travelers and roads were familiar, as travelers would often have make offerings to deities of safe passage. These deities became blended into Catholic iconography and devotion, especially when Rome adapted Catholic elements that resonated with its previous beliefs. Interesting. Effectively sanctifying previous pagan concepts under a Catholic guise. Okay, once again, they're the best at this. This was not uncommon, of course, in the Catholic Church. The title Our Lady of the Way may therefore be seen as a part of the syncretism, preserving the essence of a divine female protector for those on a journey, an idea readily familiar to pagans, while placing it within a Marian, framed as Mary, Mother of Jesus context. This reflects how the Church historically integrated pagan elements to spread Catholic teachings across regions familiar with these motifs, incorporating and reinterpreting them into its doctrines and practices. So this is kind of how we're going to see how they keep it. While Catholics have this day, Our Lady of the Way Day, it is less universally observed outside of the Jesuit community. Marian devotions are common throughout the month of May. Catholics familiar with this title of may honor her by recognizing her guidance and protective role, especially for those on journeys or missions. We just saw that. This observance is deeply rooted in the Jesuit tradition, with Our Lady of the Way symbolizing Mary's intercessory role for those traveling physically or spiritually. The feast that they have serves as a time of renewal for Jesuits, often marked by prayer, mass, and personal reflection on their missions and calling. So, Our Lady of the Way, which is also Madonna. Interesting that Mary's statue is usually also Madonna, is associated with May 24th as a day of observance, particularly among Jesuits. This title for Mary originated in Rome and holds special significance within the Jesuit community as their patroness. The image of Our Lady of the Way historically inspired St. Ignatius of Loyola. Okay, that should mean that, I hope you know that name. You should know that name. The founder of the Jesuit order, who dedicated the original Jesuit mother church to her, which is called Il Gesù in Rome. The Jesuits, May 24th is observed as a day to honor Our Lady of the Way by recognizing Mary as a guiding figure for those on their spiritual journeys. Jesuits particularly venerate her on this day, reflecting on her role as a protector and intercessor, especially for those involved in missionary work and spiritual direction. All right, so the theme goes on and on. The feast day often includes a special mass celebrating in her honor, with Jesuits gathering to reaffirm their dedication to Mary as their guide. So here they're even reaffirming that they believe that she is their way, that is they're going to guide them on their path for Christianity or Catholicism. Prayers, hymns, and readings focus on Mary's protection and guidance, with an emphasis on her role as a companion on the spiritual path. In some Jesuit communities, the feast may include processions featuring the image of her, symbolizing her role in guiding and accompanying those on the journey of faith. So they have devotional acts such as lighting candles. So here we go. Lighting candles also can be used as a Beltane thing. And communal prayer sessions also honor her on this day. Memorial Day. I hate to say this. I actually thought it might be pure and benign, but I was wrong. Memorial Day in the United States is observed on the last Monday in May. It is recognized as a day to honor and remember military personnel who died in service. However, some argue that its origins as well as its timing may often have faint echoes of older pagan and esoteric traditions of honoring the dead that go beyond military remembrance. So, this is how it does. Number 1, festival feasts honoring the dead, which were common in ancient Roman traditions. In late May, the Romans held a Lemuria, a festival for appeasing restless spirits. This was a time to honor the deceased and perform rituals to protect the living from malevolent spirits. Although Lemuria wasn't a military commemoration, it focused on keeping peace with the dead, a concept that resonates with the spirit of Memorial Day. Many ancient societies held spring festivals to honor and communicate with the dead or celebrate the cycle of life. It's possible that selecting late May for Memorial Day indirectly resonates with these traditions of seasonal reverence for the deceased. Although it is not officially recognized as a continuation of these customs, it is always the last day of May to overlap with this ancient festival. That is key. I hope that makes sense. That should be pretty clear and legitimate. Those are the sources for May, Memorial Day, and Flag Day. Again, I thought that might be a day that didn't have any pagan origins, but I was wrong. It connects with ancient totem poles, which were used, such as a flag, to honor groups or clans honoring totems. This helped them have supposedly a unity and identity and protection for the community. Flags serve a similar purpose in our modern times. Freemasons also have some symbolism influencing the flag. They have long held symbols and rituals that honor certain colors, geometric shapes, and banners. Some speculate that the celebration of Flag Day, with its emphasis on colors and symbolism, may reflect Freemason ideals of unity and allegiance to a collective identity. Although there's no direct link to the founding of Flag Day, many early American leaders and military figures were Freemasons, and the values and unity and respect for national symbolism align with Masonic principles. In summary, while Flag Day, as it is celebrated today, doesn't have clear pagan origins, its timing near the summer solstice and its themes of honoring symbols of unity and strength echo ancient festivals and traditions that revered communal symbols. The idea of the flag as a totem of national identity and the June celebration found towards the end of June, which is the witch Sabbath Lithia, which will come soon, we'll see that, aligns with light and power, reflecting a continuation of deeply rooted cultural practices, repurposing it in a modern patriotic context. Okay, so they're just on one side, they're showing how the totem pole was used and how we kind of do the same thing with the flag. Okay, Father's Day. All of a sudden we've jumped, and that's okay. It says June 16th, obviously. And Father's Day is always celebrated on the third Sunday in June. And I hope that you realize this as well. A lot of these key major holidays are actually mostly Sundays. Why? Because they want to venerate or worship the sun, and Sunday is for the sun, and Sundays are the days they're going to usually choose for holidays to kind of double venerate not just the gods, but the sun as well. It has roots, so Father's Day has roots that can be loosely connected to ancient pagan festivals honoring father figures, male deities, and the cycle of life. Though it began in the early 20th century as a complementary holiday to Mother's Day, ancient cultures held festivals and observances with themes similar to honoring fathers and patriarchal figures. So this harkens back to ancient Rome and the Parentalia festivals, celebrated in February, which are just dedicated to honoring ancestors, including fathers and forefathers. So this goes back down the lineage, down generations, like you're honoring all of them that are dead and gone. This 9-day festival, so 9 days, involved family gatherings, rituals, and offerings to the deceased, especially male ancestors, to keep their memory alive. Although not specifically tied to the June date of modern Father's Day, Parentalia emphasizes respect for paternal lineage and family legacy. Oh, this also has connections with sun worship and the masculine divine. June's summer solstice has long been a period of celebration in various pagan traditions, marking the peak of the sun's strength. So that's what they say in the occult, is that it marks the peak of the sun's strength in June. In many ancient cultures, the sun was associated with masculine energy, power, and protection. For example, a connection with the Norse god Balder, a sun god, is associated with beauty and strength around the solstice. Similarly, the Celts celebrated Lugh, I think I'm saying that right, a god of light, skills, and leadership in summer. Though his primary festival, which is Lughnasadh, was in August, these deities as paternal symbols, represented traits such as leadership, guidance, and protection, resonating with the ideals often celebrated on Father's Day. Oh, here's more. Ancient Greek and Roman fathers of the gods. So the Greeks and Romans revered father figures in mythology a lot, especially as with Zeus, Greek, and Jupiter, the Roman version, who were seen as the fathers of gods and men. While there was no specific Father's Day for the gods, their roles as patriarchal figures in mythology symbolized authority, protection, and guidance. Festivals honoring Zeus and Jupiter often took place during the important times of the year, with rituals emphasizing their paternal and protective roles over humanity. For the Greeks, Zeus was celebrated with the Olympia festivals every 4 years, which means Olympics, which emphasized his role as a father figure to gods and humans alike. Gotta help this parched throat. Okay. In ancient Egyptian, you have Osiris as a father figure. He was considered the father of pharaohs and the embodiment of life, death, and rebirth. Although his main festivals take place in the fall, Osiris was reserved as a patriarchal figure who taught agriculture and civilization, symbolizing the fatherly qualities of wisdom and continuity. Number 5, totem poles again, and ancestor worship. Many ancient and indigenous cultures practiced ancient worship, venerating familial ancestors and patriarchal lineage as a way of connecting to its past and honoring family roles. This reverence for paternal ancestors can be seen as an early form of honoring father figures, though it was not limited to a specific day. Okay, wow. If this is not quite a lot, now we're going to cover Juneteenth, which happens June 19th. Juneteenth's themes of resilience, heritage, and liberation can echo the values associated with certain African and Egyptian deities that embody strength, guidance, and freedom. In Yoruba tradition, Ogun, god of iron, war, and labor, represents strength and resilience, qualities celebrated in the spirit of Juneteenth. Obatala, a god of wisdom and peace, reflects justice and clarity, aligning with the themes of emancipation and progress. In Egyptian mythology, Osiris, god of the afterlife and rebirth, symbolizes the cycle of life and liberation from past struggles, mirroring the celebration of freedom on Juneteenth. All the Roman festivals of the goddess Libertas, though not directly tied to the date, may bear resemblance to Lithia, which happens a few days later and was kept a little later in regions around the world. These deities represent qualities that resonate with the holiday's honoring of endurance, heritage, and collective strength. Certain African and Egyptian deities also align symbolically with the Lithia, the summer solstice celebration in June, which honors the peak of the sun's power and themes of abundance, renewal, and vitality. In Egyptian tradition, Ra, the Egyptian sun god, is particularly connected to the Lithia's celebration of light and life at its peak. Ra symbolizes creation, power, and the sun's life-giving force, reflecting Lithia's themes of abundance and renewal. Osiris, associated with cycles of life and rebirth, resonates with Lithia's focus on growth and the fullness of life, symbolizing a turning point in the year's seasonal cycle. In Yoruba tradition, Ogun and Obatala also connect to the themes of strength and wisdom that Lithia celebrates. Ogun's resilience and association with earth and later echo the midsummer focus on nature's peak and vitality, while Obatala's wisdom aligns with the reflective, balanced energy often celebrated during solstice rites. Many African cultures celebrate life cycles, renewal, and community abundance, concepts central to Lithia, through ancestor veneration and celebration of unity with the land. Drumming, dancing, and feasting are common in these cultures, reflecting the same community spirit and honoring of life and abundance that Lithia embodies. While these deities and ancestral practices aren't directly celebrated during Lithia, they share symbolic resonance with midsummer's themes of light, growth, and connection to life cycles, aligning naturally with the spirit of this pagan holiday. So this is kind of what it would look like if you combine all of what's coming at you from the pagan origins of Juneteenth, very much a lot of Egyptian stuff going on there, and the African culture, types of gods. Okay, now we get to Lithia, the very one they were talking about. Lithia is also known as Midsummer. It is an ancient pagan celebration associated with the summer solstice, which falls around June 21st in the northern hemisphere. This day marks the longest day and shortest night of the year, celebrating the peak of sunlight, warmth, and the abundance of nature. Its origins are rooted in various pre-Christian traditions across Europe, particularly among the Celtic, Germanic, and Slavic peoples. Celtic and Germanic tribes saw the solstice at least as a powerful time when natural and supernatural realms were closely intertwined. It was a period for celebrating the life-giving power of the sun, which reached its zenith. A prominent legend of its period involves the Oak King and Holly King, a symbolic battle that represents the changing seasons and cycle of life and light and dark. The Oak King, who rules over the waxing year of Yule or Yule to Lithia, embodies growth, strength, and the flourishing of nature. At midsummer, he gives way to the Holly King, symbolizing the gradual decline of daylight as the year wanes towards winter. Unfortunately, Lithia is another Wiccan Sabbath, or major holiday, in which they celebrate the summer solstice, and they have, again, it's a little bit different, but orgies, and they have a human sacrifice or animal sacrifice where they have to have oral, anal, and vaginal sex with it. And this can happen with any age, a male or female or animal. They're very specific about, unfortunately, the age or type of victim they need for all of these things. And so even that has importance, unfortunately. So this is what it looks like, what would look like when they celebrate Lithia. Lots of fire and wheels of the year and dancing and so on. It connects deeply with Druidism, as you might have guessed. Druidism means the ones who know the oak, actually, I think. In Druidic traditions, the oak tree was a sacred symbol of endurance, wisdom, and connection to the divine. The Oak King represents the force of life, growth, and sunlight, deeply revered in Druidic practice as a powerful figure tied to the natural order and the cycles of the year. Druids, who were known as the spiritual leaders of the ancient Celts, would hold ceremonies in oak groves and saw the oak tree as central to the connection with the divine. Okay? The Oak King, therefore, is more than a mythological figure. He embodies the Druidic reverence for the natural world, particularly the sun's life-giving force, making the solstice an important point of balance and transition. In Slavic folklore, midsummer was linked to Kupala Night, a festival of fire, water, and fertility. This celebration included rites to honor the sun and promote growth, fertility, and love. Rituals would include bonfires again, representing the strength of the sun at its height. People would gather around these fires, dance, and sometimes jump over the flame as a symbol of purification, protection, and good luck. Flower crowns and greenery. They would adorn themselves with flower crowns, garlands, and greenery as a tradition that stems from honoring the fertility of the earth. Flowers, herbs, and plants gathered at Lithia were believed to especially be potent, with protective or healing qualities. Common plants associated with Lithia include St. John's wort, elderflower, mugwort, and vervain. Okay, dancing and music. They would dance and have music, often lasting through the night to honor the turning of the year. Drums, flutes, and other traditional instruments set the rhythm for dances around bonfires. Divination and magic. Lithia is a powerful time for divination and performing spells, especially those related to love, abundance, and protection. Pagans believe that the veil between the worlds is thinner at this time, like they do at Halloween and Beltane, enhancing one's ability to connect with spirits or receive guidance. They also honor deities of the sun and fertility. They use this night to invoke or honor gods and goddesses associated with the sun, light, and fertility. These could also include Belenus, a Celtic sun god, Helios, the Greek god of the sun, and Amaterasu, a Japanese sun goddess, depending on individual or regional practices. So there you go. They actually explain it's all the same pretty much, but each culture has a different name for that sun god. Feasting and community gatherings. Feasting on seasonal fruits, vegetables, honey, and mead, which is beer, basically, was customary, as this was a celebration of the Earth's bounty. Families and communities gathered to share in the abundance of the season. The overarching theme of Lithia is balance and transition. While it celebrates the peak of light and abundance, it also marks the moment after which days begin to shorten, leading eventually toward harvest and winter. This day holds a sense of duality, honoring the height of the sun while recognizing the slow return of darkness. In summary, Lithia's pagan origins are rooted in honoring the earth, the sun, and the cycles of life, with festivities centered on fire, fertility, music, and nature's bounty. For Druids, the Oak King is an emblem of sacred growth and divine presence, reinforcing Lithia's symbolism of life at its fullest. This observance is a time of celebration and gratitude, marking a high point in the natural cycle of growth and light. I hope you guys are learning a lot and hanging in there. I know this is a lot, but it's worth it. These are most of the holidays that the occult world doesn't want you to know about and really doesn't think you'll take the time to learn about, because it actually starts connecting the dots for you to put together the picture of what they're doing over and over again and what gods they're really worshiping. Okay, we have June 24th, St. John the Baptist Day. St. John the Baptist Day is celebrated on June 24th, and its connections to pagan origins, especially including Jesuits and Freemasons, for reasons that intersect with Catholic and pagan traditions. St. John the Baptist Day is closely aligned with the summer solstice, June 21st, also known as Lithia, or midsummer. This period was significant in many pagan European traditions that celebrated the height of sun's power, with fire festivals, bonfires, and rituals that honored the sun, fertility, and the abundance of nature. So it's kind of the same thing. It was widely celebrated among the Celts, Slavs, and Germanic peoples. As Catholicism, under the guise of Christianity, spread throughout Europe, the church often adapted pagan festivals to Christian, we already know that, days to ease the conversion process, they say. By placing the feast of St. John the Baptist on June 24th, the church provided a Christian, quote-unquote, context for the existing midsummer celebrations, transforming it into a time of pagan sun worship celebrated as a Christian figure who heralded the coming of Christ. The themes of light, renewal, and the triumph of life, central to midsummer, are easily integrated into the Christian narrative of St. John the Baptist as the forerunner of Jesus. The Jesuits, as part of the Catholic Church, hold St. John the Baptist in high esteem due to his role as the forerunner of Jesus and his embodiment of spiritual purity and dedication. The Society of Jesus, or Jesuits, value the supposed virtues of humility, service, and spiritual zeal that John the Baptist represents. So here's where we need to perk up and listen up, because they have a huge thing for John the Baptist. And they kind of, I don't know if it's true, but they represent him poorly. They also claim to be somewhat followers of him. And you'll just see how they flip it on its head and they kind of use those lessons improperly. His feast day, being so close to the summer solstice, also symbolized the decrease of the old covenant and the preparation for the new, mirroring the Jesuit mission of spiritual renewal and transformation. So basically do away with God's covenant, which we might understand is the Ten Commandments. And Freemasons have a deep reverence for St. John the Baptist, considering him one of their patron saints. There you go. Symbolism of light and enlightenment associated with Midsummer and St. John the Baptist resonates with Masonic values of seeking knowledge and spiritual illumination. The Masonic connection to St. John's Day likely has roots in medieval stonemason guilds, which celebrated the solstices and were dedicated to saints who represented moral integrity and spiritual wisdom. The duality and balance, Freemasons emphasize the balance between light and dark, known and unknown, and St. John the Baptist's Day of Midsummer represents the height of light before the gradual return of darkness. Okay. Where was I? Okay. This duality reflects the Masonic journey of moving from ignorance to enlightenment. Festivals and lodges, Masonic lodges often hold special events or installations on or near St. John the Baptist's Day, aligning with their celebration of moral and spiritual growth. So they twist it completely, turning it upside down and not using it properly. They also use bonfires and light on this day. This theme of light is central to both what they call the Catholic interpretations of St. John as the herald of Christ and the light of the world, and to Masonic ideals of enlightenment. Water in baptism is used. It's linked to the element of water through baptism. In pagan traditions, water was often venerated or worshipped during Midsummer. So there's an interesting connection. Okay, June 29th, the Feast of St. Peter and Paul. The Feast of St. Peter and Paul on June 29th holds particular significance for Catholics, Jesuits, and Freemasons due to its themes of unity, strength, evangelism, and spiritual authority, which resonate with the values of mission and missions of each group. Here's how they connect. For Catholics, the foundations of the Church have this understanding that St. Peter is regarded as the first pope, okay, and the rock upon which Jesus built the Church. His role as a foundational figure speaks directly to the Catholic understanding of apostolic succession, and church authority. St. Paul, on the other hand, represents missionary zeal, the spread of Christianity even to the point of militaristic force to persecute the people of God who get in the way. Did you hear that? So Paul, who was an assassin basically of the Christians, I need to talk to you about this. Yeah. Paul, who became, I guess he was Saul, and he became Paul to stop killing God's people because they had the true religion. Now they're taking these themes, the Catholics are, and realizing they're turning it back on its head. They're like, he was a great example of how we are supposed to take our faith so far that we are going to actually treat people the same way with militaristic force if we have to. Together, Peter and Paul embody the Church. So we have the first pope, quote unquote, and you have the example of Paul being someone who kills God's people. But they are embody the Church's dual mission of upholding the faith and evangelizing the world, essential pillars of Catholic identity, they say. All right. Themes of strength and dedication. Celebrating the martyrdom of Peter and Paul reaffirms values like resilience and loyalty to faith, even in adversity. Sometimes you have to know when to stop and when you're in the wrong. And that's not what Paul had. When he became Paul and came to Christ, he finally realized. But that's not what the church, the Catholic Church here, is upholding. They're actually saying we'll be resilient in the face of anything and everything, even if we're in the wrong, despite adversity, because we believe we're right. We know we're right. And they say their sacrifices under Roman persecution are remembered as examples of unwavering faith and commitment, which serve as a reminder to Catholics of the virtues of courage and sacrifice. So, it corresponds with Lithia and light symbolism. Because it was near Lithia, symbolizing the light at its peak, the Catholics had the overlap of Christ's light through the apostles and the church, they say. The Catholic tradition honors their spiritual light by celebrating the ancestors who brought enlightenment to the world through their faith. For the Jesuits, it encompasses evangelism and education. They took this on as a Catholic order, knowing for their emphasis on education and missionary work to find inspiration in St. Paul's tireless evangelism and adaptability in spreading the gospel across cultures. They mean a different thing. They mean exactly what they're saying and seeing. You're seeing right here, where they would take cultures and paganism and make it, quote unquote, a Christian thing. That's not what Paul did, but they believe it to be that in his tireless evangelism, which means even using force if you have to. Paul's mission to the Gentiles mirrors the Jesuit goal, they say, of reaching new audiences with the faith and fostering intellectual and spiritual growth. Okay, so this also is dedicated to spiritual authority and the service, which Jesuits value as St. Peter's steadfastness and authority, viewing him as a model of leadership. Oh, St. Peter, by the way, if I didn't mention that. Grounding it in humility and service. Peter's symbolic keys to heaven resonate with this Jesuit commitment to helping souls find their way spiritually and providing guidance through spiritual exercises and education. This is actually key. This is a big deal because they became known. Jesuits are the ones who started schools, and they also, they started spiritual exercises and education and making it a mainstream thing that had basically the things that the world wants to push onto you and indoctrinate you with. So, sacrifice for greater good, they say. The Jesuit motto is for the greater glory of God, which aligns with the sacrifices of Peter and Paul, they say, who devoted their lives to God's service. The feast underscores the importance of total dedication to faith, a central tenet of Jesuit life. For Freemasons, duality and symbolic balance is key. Freemasonry values duality and balance. You don't want to be dual. You don't want to have duality. You want to be one thing for God. He says that you need to have your yes be yes and your no be no. That means basically you be you and be true to who he calls you to be. Anyway, they are said to embody this, Peter as the rock of the faith, stabilizing, and Paul as the missionary spirit, which is transformation. This duality represents two complementary pillars of enlightenment, or paths of enlightenment, the search for inner stability and the outward journey of growth, aligning with Masonic ideals of balance between action and reflection. They also have the symbols of keys and gates. With St. Peter, of course, they say he has the keys to heaven, a powerful symbol of access to spiritual knowledge and divine mysteries. Freemasons who use these symbols represent the pursuit of enlightenment. See the keys as a metaphor for wisdom and a quest for understanding the mysteries of life and the universe. Community and brotherhood. Freemasons have a communal aspect of the feast, gatherings, processions, and shared meals, which mirrors Freemasonry's emphasis on fraternity and unity. Freemasons may see the feast as a reflection of the principles of mutual support, shared purpose, and brotherhood that are integral to Masonic lodges. They also share bonfires and lights. The tradition of bonfires for St. Peter and Paul's feast are inherited from the midsummer celebrations. Of course, where else would they come from? Which aligns with the concept of enlightenment. Catholics, Jesuits, and Freemasons alike can interpret the symbolism of fire as a spiritual illumination, resilience, and purity. The overlap with Lithia is no coincidence, however, nor is it that they say, as it is, that the Catholic holiday represents and respected by these groups because of Peter being the supposed first pope and Paul being the example of zeal enough to kill and cleanse and purify in the name of the order. So that's what they took it as. Those are their examples. The Jesuit oath has been viewed as an expression of absolute loyalty to the Pope and the readiness to undertake significant sacrifices or actions to uphold the Church's mission, using force if necessary. You can see that in their thing. It's very graphic, actually. And they actually vow to do this on a global scale. This interpretation aligns with the symbolic legacy of Peter and Paul in two distinct ways. Okay, they say, which is really weird. This is really interesting for those who, believe in kind of the New World Order and the governance of the world. Paul actually was said to represent foundational authority and governance of the world, symbolizing the Catholic Church structural power and the centralized leadership role of the Pope. This is where they say partly that they have the power to do so, to control the world. That they have rights to be that role, the leadership role in the world. Paul, they say, represents the evangelical mission, sometimes fervent to the point of zealous action, even against opposition. His dramatic transformation from persecutor to promoter of Christianity, quote unquote, is seen as a commitment to the purity of faith, regardless of the obstacles or opposition encountered. In historical and critical readings, this commitment to doctrine has occasionally been framed as a mandate to confront or cleanse any ideologies or groups considered harmful to the Church's vision. While these perspectives are debated, they echo the intense loyalty and dedication to a higher cause that certain interpretations of the Jesuit mission have embraced. In this sense, the Feast of St. Peter and Paul, commemorating these saints' legacies of loyalty and sacrifice, may reinforce the Jesuit ideal of unwavering commitment to their mission, even when it involves opposition to those seen as hindering their vision for the faith. Oh dear. There we go. So now we come to July. July 1st is known as, only in the occult world, as Demon Revels. The Demon's Revel Day. It's a blood sacrifice that's needed. It's a druid sexual association with demons that they carry out on a female of any age. Then we go to July 4th, which is Independence Day. It has connection with ancient Roman Feria, a public festival honoring the gods and the state. These festivals included rest, feasting, and patriotic displays to reinforce unity and celebrate the state's strength. Although not directly related to the Declaration of Independence, this tradition of gathering in early July to honor communal identity parallels the American custom of celebrating freedom, unity, and state pride on the 4th of July. It also has symbols of light and fire, as we know from fireworks. These also have roots in ancient customs where light and fire are symbolic of energy, protection, and celebration. In various cultures, fire was used as a tool to signify triumph and to ward off negative energies, particularly during times of public celebration. Similarly, on July 4th, fireworks serve as a powerful symbol of freedom and national pride, visually embodying themes of strength and resilience. This also has to do with Freemasonry, as many founding fathers of the United States, including George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, were Freemasons. Freemasonry, which draws on a variety of ancient and mystical traditions, emphasizes symbols like light, knowledge, and freedom, central to the 4th of July celebrations. The pursuit of enlightenment and independence aligns with Masonic values as well, of personal and societal freedom, resonating with the ideals commemorated on this day. The themes of freedom and rebirth are there also, with their rites from the pagan world. The patriotic rites and communal gatherings are also there, with 4th of July parades also echoing from pagan festivals, picnics, and public gatherings. This practice of communal celebration, honoring shared values and identity, resonates with traditions that sought to reinforce cultural bonds through shared festivities and expressions of loyalty. So they want you, through this, they want to make you bonded to this the state and have a sense of loyalty to them, that they will actually be there for you, or you have some brotherhood or something. Unity is what they want to accomplish. Unity in this feeling and in gatherings and celebrations. Okay. So, what the Bible says about this, I just thought this was fitting. It says, no one serving as a soldier in 2 Timothy 2:4, gets entangled in civilian affairs, but rather tries to please his commanding officer. This is to mean that the commanding officer is understood to represent Christ or God, whom believers are called to serve wholeheartedly. Civilian affairs symbolizes distractions or concerns of the world that might pull a believer away from their commitment to God. This verse calls for believers to prioritize their relationship with God above other commitments or earthly entanglements, including national or social allegiances. The idea is that just as soldiers' duty is to follow orders and focus on the mission given by their superior, a Christian's mission is to please God, not to be distracted by secular matters that could weaken their focus on spiritual growth. In light of discussions about national pride or other earthly affiliations, this verse reinforces the idea that a believer's ultimate loyalty should be to God rather than any worldly entity. It encourages single-minded devotion, underscoring that our highest duty is to please God by living in a life aligned with his teachings and purpose, rather than becoming overly invested in temporary worldly identities or pursuits. This is another reason why we have this channel. We're trying to showcase and show you how many things in our society are actually deceptions and distractions from Satan. And they're saying that even this national pride and celebration is actually distraction. Many things are actually. But that's what it's saying. Okay. July 25th is St. James Day. St. James Day, traditionally celebrated on this day, is recognized in Catholicism to honor St. James the Apostle, one of Jesus' 12 disciples. However, like many Catholic observances, elements of this day can be linked to pagan origins and are assimilated into its celebration, especially in areas of Spain and Celtic regions. Also, the day memorialized for being the unveiling. So this is really key. I hope you're listening. Ooh, please listen. This is the same day, July 25th. St. James Day is also the same day known for the unveiling of the Baphomet statue in the Satanic Church. Okay, hope that's ringing a bell. Pagan connections in the Iberian Peninsula or Spain or Portugal, pre-Catholic pilgrimage routes. The region of Galicia in Spain, where St. James is said to be buried, was historically home to Celtic and pagan pilgrimage practices long before Catholic influence. So they're not original. What a surprise. Ancient people made pilgrimages to this area, particularly to Fenestra, maybe, literally the end of the earth, as part of sun worship and the honor of the solar deities. Solar worship and summer rituals. In pagan traditions, July marked a time for honoring sun gods and engaging in rites to celebrate the peak of summer. The pilgrimage route that later became the Camino de Santiago was already spiritually significant as it symbolized a journey toward the westernmost point in Europe, where people believed that they could encounter the gods of the setting sun. When Catholicism spread through Spain, early Catholic leaders saw the benefit of aligning St. James with these established pilgrimage practices, transforming their sun worship journey into a Catholic pilgrimage in honor of St. James suddenly. Okay, in Celtic influence, it also celebrates Lughnasadh or Lammas in early August. It actually has festivals that are common. A festival, this is Lughnasadh or Lammas, is a festival marking the beginning of the harvest season. St. James's Day aligns closely with this period, leading some to believe that elements of Lughnasadh celebrations were absorbed into the same St. James festivities. Symbolism of the sacred, it should be sacred, I should have said that, the scallop shell, The scallop shell, commonly associated with St. James and the Camino de Santiago, has roots in pagan symbolism, or pre-Catholic symbolism. That's true too. In ancient Celtic and Roman traditions, the shell represented fertility, protection, and divine presence. The shell, which travelers began to carry, actually, as a symbol of their journey, may have originally represented the pagan journey towards enlightenment or favor for the gods. The adoption of the scallop shell and certain midsummer practices aligned with St. James' Day with the region's pre-existing Celtic traditions, allowing for easier transition or converts from paganism to Catholicism. Okay. The path for pilgrimage becoming a part of St. James, the Camino was part of a network of pagan pilgrimages where travelers sought spiritual encounters, often tied to the cycles of the sun and agricultural festivals. The pilgrimages also were connected to the stars and the Milky Way. This Camino de Santiago, or Way of St. James as it was called, is often associated with the Milky Way, which ancient Europeans saw as a path leading to the afterlife or to the divine realms. The pre-Catholic pilgrims traveled west, following the Milky Way in pursuit of spiritual renewal, a tradition later absorbed into the Catholic framework as a part of honoring St. James. The Camino's alignment with the Milky Way and its deep connection to the stars reflects ancient European spirituality and predates Catholicism, symbolizing a spiritual journey that was then recontextualized to fit Catholic narratives around St. James. Okay, so this is what it would look like. They just replaced the pagan deities to be St. James. They called him a figure of protection and patron of travelers and pilgrims, and a role that many pagan deities often filled. He was a martyr and warrior symbol. In Spain, St. James has become known as Santiago Matamoros, St. James the Moor Slayer, a militarized figure often depicted on horseback, helping to drive out perceived enemies of the faith. This image of St. James resembles pre-Catholic warrior deities and heroes who were believed to fight on behalf of their people, blending pagan ideas of protective gods with Catholic hagiography, or kind of like hieroglyphics. The veneration of St. James as a powerful protector likely absorbed aspects of pre-Catholic warrior deities, allowing a smoother transition for converts again. The early Catholic Church strategy of syncretism, there you go, they just outed themselves, allowed these elements to be redefined within a Catholic context, giving rise to traditions that continue to carry traces of their pagan past. All right, July 27th is a grand climax. This happens a couple times a year, but it's really, again, really disgusting, where they have a human sacrifice, child or adult female at this time, and it's also oral, anal, vaginal, and human sacrifice, or demur, which is killing it. It holds significance in occult and mythological circles, viewed as a time for heightened spiritual activity and ritualistic energy. The grand climax ritual, observed in certain occult traditions, is associated with rituals meant to invoke supernatural energies, often involving offerings or symbolic acts, to connect with dark or spiritual forces. It also has a connection with astrological significance. It is aligned, or has the influence of Leo, they say, ruled by the sun. Late July is believed to be a powerful period for channeling personal strength and transformation, sometimes fueled by Mars's assertive energy. Sirius rising and the dog days. Late July aligns with the heliacal rising of Sirius, the dog star, linked to heightened supernatural power and renewal. The dog days connecting to Sirius are seen as a time of spiritual transitions and increased intensity. Okay. In many traditions, they recognize late July with fire and light rituals once again, symbolizing transformation and power, themes tied to Leo's fiery influence. This period is often associated also with intense spiritual energies believed to enhance one's ability to access otherworldly powers or protect against darker forces. These themes make July 27th a key date in occult traditions, blending celestial, mythological, and ritualistic elements into a time of symbolic climax and powerful spiritual activity. In occult traditions, this is usually in satanic or esoteric calendars. They have 4 main grand climax dates throughout the year. Again, this is a time of heightened spiritual energy in which they take, I guess, they fully take part in. One is in bulk, February 1st through the 2nd. This is actually what we know as Easter. I'm sorry, that's not right. Actually, I think that is. Imbolc, which is Easter. Walpurgisnacht, which is Beltane. The summer climax, which we're talking about, July 27th, is midsummer. And Samhain, which is actually October 31st or Halloween, are these time periods in which the grand climaxes happen. These dates correspond to seasonal cycles and align with pagan or cult traditions that view certain times of year as spiritually charged. Each grand climax is chosen to maximize ritual impact of tapping into natural and celestial energies associated with these seasonal transitions. Okay, the grand climax in occult traditions happens several times a year because within these systems, there are multiple designated high energy periods believed to align with cycles of nature, celestial events, and changes in spiritual energy. Here are reasons why. So, number 1, seasonal and celestial cycles, where it follows natural and cycles of solstices, equinoxes, and moon phases, which are thought to influence spiritual energy as well. They are often seen as periods of portals or times when the veil between realms is thinner, making it easier to connect with supernatural forces. So this is actually how they usually explain that they believe the veil of knowledge and understanding and mystery is thinner during these times to take on more supernatural forces within you and understand and commune with the demons and spirits. Okay, so alignment with pagan festivals as well. They often mirror a lot of the Beltane, Samhain, and other fire or harvest festivals. And have the climax, lunar phases, and ritual power. They go along with lunar phases. Esoteric and astrological beliefs and energy peaks. Some occult beliefs hold that specific times throughout the year carry heightened cosmic energy. Aligning rituals with these peaks is thought to amplify the effect of the ritual, using natural energy to achieve desired outcomes. In summary, the grand climax dates, which happens several times a year, allows for alignment with various natural, celestial, and astrological energies believed to enhance ritual significance, mirroring ancient and pagan traditions that observe similar seasonal and cosmic patterns. So, can someone say astrology? Okay, so unfortunately, this is kind of what it would look like. In ancient Rome, Mars, the god of war, was honored at various points of the year. It has connections with this as well, with certain rituals involving sacrifices to call on Mars for strength and protection. The association of Mars with heat, intensity, and battle energy can resonate with the July's grand climax in occult practices, aligning with themes of conflict, power, and protection. So we're jumping again. One more holiday in July. July 31st is Ignatius Loyola Day. So why not worship the day the guy who actually made the Jesuit order? He is, in fact, the one who did this. While this day is primarily recognized within Catholicism, some connections to pagan, occult, and mythological themes can be inferred. We're going to see about this. Jesuit symbolism, the IHS actually is this. Jesuit order's symbol, IHS. They say it's the first letters of Jesus' name in Greek, but is often set within a radiant sunburst. The sunburst symbolizes associations with solar deities in various pagan regions, as the sun was widely venerated in ancient civilizations, such as Ra and Helios. Sun and fire. Ignatius himself emphasized the concept of illumination and spiritual fire, aligning with the theme of inner enlightenment. A concept also prominent in many mystery religions and esoteric practices. The sun symbol in Jesuit imagery may suggest parallels to sun worship seen in other faiths as well. This is kind of what that looks like. And in mystical and spiritual exercises, he was the one who made this up, by the way. So if you find spiritual exercises, a set of meditation and contemplative practices, these exercises share similarities with mystical practices and other traditions which focus on achieving altered states of consciousness, aligning with certain esoteric or occult traditions where meditation is used to reach higher awareness or divine connection. We can say that we see this in schools where our kids are being kind of forced to meditate and have contemplative practices or unified, consciousness. And so there's just a lot. He's actually the one who made sports in schools and actually made it a regulated thing to participate in sports and so on. So he's known for bringing in these mythical and spiritual exercises, and he actually made a lot of the colleges today, like Yale and Harvard and a lot of those ones. So, alleged secret rituals. Some critics and conspiracy theorists suggest that the Jesuit order engages in rituals or practices that are occult in nature, often citing secretive elements of Jesuit initiation and vows. Yeah, they do. Although largely speculative, they say, the Jesuits' intense focus on discipline, inner transformation, and oath-taking has been interpreted as having occult undertones because it does. So on this day, it is connected or has such close proximity to Lughnasadh, or August 1st, which is known as a significant pagan festival marking the beginning of the harvest season. This actually places Ignatius's day within a season traditionally linked to fire, light, and harvest, which can align with the Jesuit themes of enlightenment and service. It has a festival of light and fire. Many ancient traditions around late July and early August celebrate this, as we've already talked about, so it actually has connections with that. And he took the same zeal that we saw. Ignatius Loyola took the same zeal that they said that Paul had to push your beliefs and go even to militaristic force to do so, and have a blinders on type of way of spreading your faith and force. So he took that to heart. He also was the one who made, as the Society of Jesus is known, it also became, they're known for torture. They practice and study methods of torture. Okay. So Ignatius, as a spiritual warrior, he is acclaimed as a former soldier and dedicated to spiritual warfare, such as Mars. He overlaps with Mars in Roman mythology, or the Norse god Tyr, which is supposed to have martial prowess and dedication to divine causes. He supposedly took on that as well. He was kind of a martyr or whatever for his faith, and he also adapted all local beliefs to become syncretic, basically, into Catholicism. He was probably one of the masterminds for that. All right, so we are in August. This is Lammas, or aka Lughnasadh, like we've been pointed back to a little bit. Once in a while it's been mentioned. Lammas, or Lughnasadh, celebrated on August 1st, is one of the traditional pagan festivals in the Wheel of the Year, observed primarily in Celtic and other ancient European cultures. Its origins and themes revolve around the harvest, honoring deities of agriculture, light, and abundance. So Lughnasadh marks the beginning of the harvest season, particularly the grain harvest. The name Lammas is derived from Old English halafmas, meaning loaf mass, reflecting the tradition of baking the first grains into bread as an offering of thanks. It was a time to give thanks for the crops and the abundance of the earth, often involving feasts where the first loaves were shared in gratitude to the gods and spirits associated with the land. As you can see, is pretty well depicted there. Of course, the word mass harkens back to all of the pagan masses or holidays that have been now become Catholic that are on our calendar. There were games that were associated with celebration and symbolic act of this, involving Lug's favor for strength and vitality during the harvest. The first fruits, loaves, and sometimes small animals or symbolic figures made from grain stalks were offered to the gods, spirits, and ancestors in thanks and to ensure continued prosperity. These offerings often included bonfires where the first sheaves of grain or bread were burned to honor the gods and share in the earth's bounty. Bonfires symbolized the sun's waning power as summer began to turn towards autumn. As a harvest festival, Lammas is tied to fertility in the earth's cycles. Of course, we know what that goes with. Abundance and fertility, rituals to do that. It was time to recognize the interconnectedness of life, death, and rebirth, acknowledging that the earth's sacrifices allow for the community's survival. Lughnasadh derives its name from Lugh, a prominent Celtic god associated with light, skill, and craftsmanship. Lugh was not specifically a harvest god, but his skills and attributes were celebrated during this time. The festival was said to have been founded by Lugh in honor of his foster mother, Talitiu, who, according to legend, died after clearing the land for agriculture. Thus, the festival also became a time to honor the ancestors and those who labored for community's prosperity. In addition to feasting, Lughnasadh was marked by games, sports, and contests to honor Lugh's skills and prowess. These games were akin to the Olympics, with athletic contests, horse racing, and competitions to showcase strength and skill. Okay. The Wiccans who follow this are following the Wheel of the Year because that's where it comes from. It is one of the 8 Sabbats that they follow, like we were talking about, Imbolc, Beltane, and so on. For Wiccans, Lammas is a time of gratitude, abundance, and as we saw. They observe this day with rituals that honor the first harvest, often baking bread and offering in gratitude to the earth and deity. So that would be like on their altar. Themes of abundance, we saw that. You can read the rest of that if you want. It's been the same thing. The Jesuits, being a Catholic order, do not traditionally celebrate Lammas as a pagan festival. However, Catholicism historically adopted aspects of pagan seasonal festivals, which kind of harken back to it. With Catholic harvest feasts, they offer the first fruits and bread, which are made. For the Jesuits, bread has deep significance in Eucharistic symbolism, the body of Christ. While they do not celebrate Lammas, the symbolic importance of bread and sacrifice may align indirectly with Catholic themes of gratitude for God's provision. This connects a lot. Historical and symbolic ties, Freemasonry doesn't directly celebrate Lammas, but often explores ancient traditions, symbols, and cycles of nature that align with the themes of the harvest. Agricultural and community values, of course, they used it for this. Freemasonry appreciates this and tries to connect it to community, labor, and gratitude, values that are woven into their philosophy. Okay. Continue on with Assumption Day, which happens on August 15th through 16th. It is a Catholic feast commemorating the Assumption of the Virgin Mary into heaven. So they assume, that's what it means, the assumption that she went to heaven. Does that sound bad to anyone else? However, it was already a pagan festival and was honoring the goddess of fertility, harvest, and motherly protection, which were celebrated around mid-August in various cultures. Here is where it's tied to. It's the Roman festival of Diana, which is known as the Festival of the Torches. Interesting that it has the element of fire. The mid-August festival of Diana, celebrated on August 13th, was dedicated to Diana, the Roman goddess of the moon, the hunt, and childbirth. And Diana was often viewed as a protective mother figure and was worshipped with torches, symbolizing light and guidance. Diana's festival aligns closely with themes of protection and motherhood, resonating with the later veneration of Mary. So they just made it. Diana was the original, and now she is Mary. Okay. It also aligns with the Greek goddess Demeter and harvest themes. It was similar to how Mary... she was similar because she was the Greek goddess of harvest, fertility, and motherhood. Mid-August celebrations gave thanks for the earth's abundance, similar to how Mary is the Assumption is venerated as a protective mother figure. Okay, it also seems to overlap with feasts of Isis in ancient Egypt, where she was associated with magic, fertility, and motherhood again. The Catholic connection of Mary's Assumption parallels the mythological themes of Isis, ascending to divine realm with her powers intact, reflecting protection and continuity of life. Astarte, Queen of Heaven, is also known in ancient mythology for being the goddess of fertility, love, and war. She is called the Queen of Heaven, and she is Assyrian and Phoenician. This title overlaps with the Catholic title for Mary as Queen of Heaven. Oh, they like to emphasize that, don't they? Celebration of fertility and harvest. Astarte's worship involves rituals for fertility and bountiful harvest. Her worshippers often celebrated her during harvest times, such as we're seeing aligning with Mary's veneration in late summer. Having the motherly qualities. Gaia, Mother Earth, as we said, she is a mother, and she was also celebrated in late summer, as we see, as the abundant giver of life and the sustainer of humanity. Festivals and offerings were made to honor the earth's bounty and maternal care. So Mary's Assumption Day echoes all of these themes. And somehow she's always tied with these harvest season. So that is that, but we also have August 24th, St. Bartholomew's Day, which is called the Great Wiccan Sabbath and Fire Festival. So this picture will make a lot more sense later, but it is also known as St. Bartholomew's Day in Catholicism, as it connects with pagan origins, Wiccan traditions, and their occult practices, particularly themes of fire protection and the end of summer harvest. This date aligns with themes celebrated in both pagan fire festivals and Wiccan Sabbaths, making it significant in various spiritual traditions. St. Bartholomew's Day and pagan fire festivals are connected. On August 24th, it is close to season turning from summer to autumn, and is a time traditionally marked by fire festivals and pagan cultures, as we see. We've been covering that all along. So it has the ties to Lammas and Lughnasadh, like we covered. With the great Wiccan Sabbath and fire celebration connection. While not one of the major 8 Sabbaths in the Wiccan Wheel of the Year, August 24th has some significance for Wiccans as a time of reflection and spiritual preparation as the light begins to fade. Wiccan practitioners may hold smaller rituals involving fire and light to give thanks for the summer's bounty and to keep protection for the coming winter. So they use this as a day of protection and banishing in Wiccan and pagan practices. This aligns with St. Bartholomew's themes in folklore, where he is believed to protect against evil forces. Rituals may include burning herbs, lighting candles, and invoking deities or spirits associated with safeguarding the home and harvest. So here they have actually tied the reason that they burn certain things is to actually activate the energy to make it so, basically with the demons or the gods, or basically give it power to become reality. Okay. And the occult significance is there. For some occult traditions, late August is seen as traditional time where they can perform rituals to honor this change, a change from darker half of the year, welcoming introspection and shadow work. That's an occult work or our phrase. It is a time to prepare for the winter months, seeking inner strength and resilience. They use it as spiritual cleansing, in which they do, just cleansing rituals aimed at purging negative energy. This ties into the theme of purification, is sometimes incorporated into occult rituals that reflect a spiritual reset before autumn. Historical and folklorish associations. Well, St. Bartholomew as a... St. Bartholomew as a protector against evil. In Catholic folklore, St. Bartholomew was believed to have power over demons and evil spirits. This aligns with pagan practices that seek protection from malevolent forces, especially as the seasons shift. Folk traditions sometimes invoke St. Bartholomew in protection spells or blessings, reflecting an overlap with similar pagan rituals. He's also connected with healing, particularly skin diseases. Healing rituals are common during the traditional periods in which pagan and Wiccan traditions, with some practices incorporating elements like sacred herbs or fire to invoke health and protection. Okay, it also aligns with preparation for the fall equinox that is important to them, which is Mabon, the fall equinox in Wicca, which celebrates balance, gratitude, and the second harvest. The period surrounding St. Bartholomew's Day can act as a spiritual preparation, focusing on gratitude for the light of summer in anticipation of the darker, more introspective season ahead. Harvest rituals. Pagan and Wiccan rituals near the end of August may focus on gathering the last fruits of summer, both physically and spiritually. Celebrants give thanks for abundance and prepare offerings to the land. Wow, to the land as a gesture of respect and gratitude. This convergence of pagan, Wiccan, and occult practices with the Catholic feast of St. Bartholomew reflects ancient traditions of honoring the earth's cycles and preparing spiritually for the shifting seasons. It aligns also with themes of protection, fire, harvest, and transition to autumn, and has connections to various gods and goddesses, such as Diana. She had the Festival of Torches on August 13th, as we saw. She had harvest attached to her. Lug, as we saw as well. Isis. And the Sirius and the Dog Star. Healing as well. Festivals for harvest. Demeter in the Greek. As she overlaps with Demeter, Demeter is known to be associated with grain, agriculture, and fertility, was honored in various harvest festivals. Her story, particularly her grief over her daughter Persephone's descent into the underworld, symbolizes a cycle of life and the coming of darkness, a theme present in the late August rituals. Harvest themes are everywhere. In Hecate, in the Greek, she is the goddess of magic, the crossroads, like the crossroads that the actors and the music artists go to be honored by Satan with gifts and skills and protection. Hecate, often invoked as a guardian at the crossroads, represents both protection and transformation. Known as the goddess of witchcraft and magic, her influences increases as the day shortens and the season shifts towards autumn, supposedly. Protection and purification. They also invoke in Wiccan and pagan practitioners, they invoke Hecate during the late August to seek guidance and protection. They feel that her role as a guardian against dark forces resonate with the cleansing and protection rituals associated with this time. Bartholomew's Massacre. I hope in some ways that you have heard of this, in some ways that you haven't, but St. Bartholomew's Massacre was a time of marriage of Henry of Navarre, a Protestant, and Margaret of Valois, a Catholic, which led to a deadly trap for the Huguenots or Christians of the day. The massacre began on August 24th, 1572, after Catholic forces, reportedly under the influence of Catherine de' Medici and other powerful Catholic leaders, exploited the gathering of Protestants in Paris under the guise of reconciliation. The Catholics targeted Protestant leaders, beginning with Admiral Gaspar de Coligny, and swiftly escalated to a citywide slaughter that saw men, women, and children massacred. This betrayal spread across France over several weeks, resulting in the deaths of thousands of Huguenots, and deepened the bitter divide between Catholics and Protestants in Europe. The event is remembered as a devastating example of religious violence and political manipulation. But some groups, such as the Jesuits, aka Catholics, actually commemorate this day for having wiped out a fraction of Christians getting in the way. And that is my research for that. This brings me back to thanking you guys so much for your patience and understanding. That is all for this deep dive part 2. Please stay tuned for part 3. You'll enjoy it as well. And of course, if this is a lot for you, which it is for anybody, I'll just be honest. take time to go through it. And I hope to see you guys soon. I know Mikey went through all of the thank yous for how much we appreciate you guys as our viewers and how to support us and where to get our merch. Thank you so much.
If you guys want to support this ministry, you can do so by going to Cashapp, Candid Truth Official, Venmo, my name Mikey Jenny, Zelle, executebrand@gmail, and check out our shirts, man. We got some shirts and hoodies. We got a lot of cool designs, and we're coming out with new ones all the time. And we're doing the best we can as just two of us. Actually, Aubrey has some skincare line, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so I recently launched a body care line. Mainly it consists of shampoos and lotion and body wash right now. I'm working on a conditioner. These are important because when we think of clean products in our grocery store or in life, we really don't have those. I don't know if you know that, but I recently became, and have been for a little while, a functional nutritionist who counsels people. So if you want counseling, go ahead on my website. It's www.sozobody.com. And I have a blog where you can learn a little bit more about stuff. But I was influenced to make my own body care line because I was already doing so for myself and my family. Because I didn't want any of the additives or preservatives or hormone disruptors and things that clog your skin or just hurt them, basically toxins that you take into your body to affect my health anymore. So you can also go up on sozobody.com and go to the shop and check it out. We have all of those available to you. We've already had quite a few orders come in, but I would love to have more of you know about it and its healthy benefits. So if you'd like a clean body care line and you want to honor God with your health, that's a good alternative to a lot of what's sold in stores. Even if they claim to be organic or clean or vegan, they usually have waxes or parabens and all kinds of other things that are not good for you. So that's my spiel. Hope you guys loved this presentation and that you'll check out my other website as well.